Benny, bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
Everyone!
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Let me explain something to you. I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude.
No one is to stone anyone until I blow this whistle.
You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hubba hubba.
Welcome back to the Zedos Gang podcast, everyone. It's been 105, 106. Welcome to episode 106, The Reckoning. And joining us for this podcast is one and the most powerful man on the planet, Sacha Allari.
Hey.
He's like, when did
I'm confused when I became this status, but you know, I'll take it. Yeah.
You're the new Man of Steel, Sach.
Right.
And also joining us is the equally and absolutely overlord and most powerful overlord, Greg Marshall. Sorry, not Greg. Greg Marshall?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Greg Marshall.
Overlord, we think. It could be him, we don't know.
I was about to call you Greg Miller. That's not your name.
That's another Overlord. Us Overlords get so confused.
Yeah. And we have the Unicron of the DC universe, which is... I know I've just mixed two universes, but go with it. We have... oh my God, I forgot your name.
Unicron will do.
You go Unicron. Neil.
Yeah.
What's your last name, Neil?
Coppin.
Neil Coppin. Okay. We have Neil Coppin as the Unicron and Overlord of the DC universe. And with those grand introductions, we'll go straight into it. And the first piece of news is about Jon Hamm. So Jon Hamm is going to be in the Fletch Reboot, or is going to star in the Fletch Reboot, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that, to be honest. I was hoping for it would be not Chevy Chase, but who was the guy that was supposed to be in the Fletch Reboot that Kevin Smith was going to direct?
Oh, that was Jason
Lee.
Jason Lee, there we go. Jason Lee. Well, that was when Kevin Smith was going to do it, like about 15, maybe even 20 years ago.
Right.
It was a long time. It was a long time when he said he was going to do that, because he wrote the whole script to Fletch Lives, which is the novels.
Yeah.
If you ever read the novels are completely different to the films, because like those films are nothing like the Fletch books. But I think Smith's plan was to have like Chevy Chase be the narrator.
Right.
If that makes sense, as a little homage to like the previous films.
Right.
And have it set whenever the books are set rather than the now.
Okay.
But you know, that never happened, mainly because whoever owned the rights didn't see Jason Lee as the leading man at all.
Damn.
They were like, we don't pick someone else, or you can't do it. But he was convinced he was the guy, and they were like, well,
he's got a Chevy. He's got a Chevy Chase like a persona. So I thought that would have been the way to go. What did the rest of you ever seen Fletch?
I've seen Fletch. I'm not sure it's going to translate so well to the modern day. He was quite, he was cheeky and chauvinistic and stuff like that. I mean, if I was going to do it, I'd think it'd have to be a Ryan Reynolds rather than either a Jason Lee or a Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm hasn't got the, I don't know, he might be able to pull off the cheek, but I'm not convinced. Is it really bad though? The originals are brilliant, but I'm glad that Chevy Chase isn't narrating on part of it, because he's reportedly one of the biggest douches in Hollywood now.
I've heard.
And it's like, he doesn't deserve to be. He was big back in the day, but he's not all that. He's no Bill Murray. So
yeah. Even Bill Murray would be.
Wasn't it Bill Murray who really shit on him? Like I think it was they had a physical, well, not physical, but they had an argument face to face during Saturday Night Live. And
no way.
I think he said to him, you're a B-list comedian, or you're a B-list actor, or he basically called him B-list. It was either actor, comedian, or person, but he was like, you're a B-list. And I think it was either Dan Aykroyd and John Landis, but other obviously quite prominent people were there at the time, kind of pulling them apart. And whoever it was just like, oh my God, you just said that to Chevy Chase, who's like, at this moment in time, the king. And then it was like, well, look at how their career trajectories went. Who's who?
Outside of Fletch, I can't remember, and the National Lampoon things, he hasn't exactly he hasn't had the careers of like Bill Murray and the other SNL alumni of the time. So yet he has the ego of all of them and then some. You can't.
But I think maybe that's that. I feel like the ego thing probably comes. I mean, some people are just egotistical, but I think it probably comes out of the fact that he was essentially one of the first like bona fide stars from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. Right. But now every other breakout star is bigger than him. Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler. I mean, every single other SNL star that's broken out, with maybe the exception of David Spade and Chris Farley, who died too young, has become bigger than him. And so, I don't know. I like Fletch though. Back in the time, before he was a primo douchebag, he was, it was a good film. But I'm not sure it needs a remake. I'm not sure we need to update it. It's, as I said, they'll either try to make it the same and it will not go over well, or they'll try to make it more PC and stuff. And it's like when they redid Alfie, and it's like,
oh my God,
Alfie, because Alfie was just a chauvinistic arsehole, but Michael Caine pulled it off, and Jude Law did an all right job, but it's not the same. So.
No, I forgot about that remake.
I apologise. We all have. We all did.
I think Jon Hamm could pull it off because he's quite a charismatic guy, and he's fairly good at comedy, doing comedy films, and he does have that kind of timing. So maybe it could go somewhere. I think I think it would be a relatively cheap film to make, so you wouldn't be risking capital on it. So if this pandemic is still going on and we're still here, then it could be a film that could just be released on streaming, because that seems to be the way to go now. And I can see it being if it does well, if it's funny, or were the books supposed to be funny, Satch?
They are funny, but they're not like the movies kind of funny. They're more, you know what I mean, black humor kind of, kind of like Kevin Smith's kind of films in terms of like witty and you know what I mean, but
not ha-ha funny.
Ha-ha funny like the movies. If the movies were like a completely different tone to the books, so
right.
So I mean, like how I personally like if I'd read the books or read it, because I've only read one. If I'd read that book where before going to see the movie, I would have thought the movie was awful.
Right.
Well, that's
but I did it the other way around. So I appreciate both,
Right, yeah.
So it's just a different take.
I think that.
But then, like Greg said, it depends what they're trying to make, because they might be trying to make a remake of the movie, in which case Greg's right, might not translate well today.
It definitely won't. I've seen Fletch lately, and there's no way they can get away with half of this stuff with this PC environment. So it's
not a very likable character. That's half the problem. I mean, Fletch, he's a bit of a douche.
He really is.
And I'm not talking about outside of off camera. I'm saying, even Fletch is a bit, sort of rubs people the wrong way. But
it's.
I feel like sorry to cut you off.
No, go for it.
I don't I've never watched Fletch the films. I've never read the books. I know of it because of a great friend of mine. is a humongous Saturday Night Live fan. Like, he's watched literally every season.
Damn.
He's younger than I am. He's watched every season. And I'm like, he's the one who he read the book of Saturday Night Live. He's the one who told me about the argument between Murray and Chevy.
Yeah.
He's watched the film. He's a fan of it. But my kind of mindset on it is, for one, the only kind of adaptation I want to see Jon Hamm in is Archer.
Oh my god, yeah.
I want to see Jon Hamm as Archer. That's I'm like, it's a home run right there.
Yeah.
Also, in regards to Fletch, like, having not seen the film, I can't judge about how raunchy or about how chauvinistic and things like that are. But considering when it was made, I'm pretty sure that it was questionable in today's light. But I think there's a slight possibility that you could probably get away with it if you set it in the time of the books.
Right. Yeah. That's an idea.
I mean, really and truly, like, me and my girlfriend, we started watching the MCU from the very beginning recently, and watching Iron Man 1. And even like we watched up to the first Avengers, and just watching Iron Man 1, like, you couldn't make that film today. And that's 2008, because you like the way he is, his personality, there's nothing wrong with him.
Oh, because he's a chauvinist and he's a drunk.
But he's like, the way he is, like, literally, he has this, he has a discussion with the reporter, and then, she's like, do you ever lose sleep? And he's like, I'm willing to lose some sleep with you. And then literally they cut, and the next scene she's on top of him in bed.
I think that's okay though if you're showing he is a playboy and stuff like that. I'm for the MCU, and it's like it shows that it's sort of juxtaposition when he sat down with Potts. I mean, James Bond's still doing that. He's still going high, and then the next moment he's bedding the girl. Even if it's like, oh, I've just killed your husband, you're the widow, and I'm still going to bed you. So he's doing that sort of shit. I think as long as it's not going back to the days of Sean Connery where he's backhanding them on camera, that's where there's an issue. Shut up, bitch. Know your place. That's where we're kind of going, oh, we're on very dodgy ground now. But
Sean Connery wasn't James. He wasn't a secret agent. He was a pimp. That backhand was just...
He really was. The worst thing is, and again, I love Sean Connery, but when you actually hear his opinions on that in real life, it's like, oh yeah, slap a woman every now and then. And it's like,
I saw that interview.
He's a real advocate of slapping a woman. It's like, shit. One hopes that Daniel Craig is not. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole other discussion which I want to get into at one point. But yeah, kudos on the Archer thing. Jon Hamm's perfect to play Sterling Archer. Perfect. I will move it along now. On to the next topic, and Sony announces filming has begun on the Uncharted movie, and I don't know if are any of you guys interested in the Uncharted movie?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a huge gamer, so I like it, and I'm excited about how they do it, as long as it doesn't become a bad version of Bond. And I'm still unsure, because I love Tom Holland, but I'm not sure he's great casting for Nathan Drake. But he seems very young and boyish, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, I guess. Yeah,
I don't know. I've never played any of the games. I haven't played any. Well, Naughty Dog, they did The Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
I played that. It is what it is, and it's Uncharted feels just like Indiana Jones to me. So
it's Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider basically,
right?
Mashed up. So
right. And does he have any like quips? Does he have something that like Indiana Jones always losing his hat and getting it back?
No, not really. That's it. I mean, Indiana Jones works on the big screen because he's got all these iconic things, and he was designed to be sort of like James Bond of classic.
Yeah, like you
But
see the silhouette of James. Like, sorry to cut you, Greg.
No. He's James Bond and the old sort of serial films from the days and stuff like that. The sort of Tonto things and stuff like that. And Nathan Drake's a bit vanilla, really. They'd have to make it interesting, which, I don't know if there's enough substance. I don't know if we needed this. Also, can when has there ever been a good video game adaptation of a movie ever?
Mortal Kombat 1.
No, I'm sorry. It was
I don't
possible.
care what anybody says.
It was better than Street Fighter, which the only redeeming feature was Raul Julia. There's never been a good one.
No. I thought, this is a brilliant movie. I played the game as like a grown adult because the film came out when I was a kid and I played the game. So it was just like, seeing these video game characters for real. Like the first time I watched Street Fighter, I thought it was the best movie ever because of the very end of it. When I realized how terrible it was, which was about a week later when I watched the animated movie, I was like, what did I watch? But Mortal Kombat, no, I'm like, it follows the path of the first game. The first film follows the path of the first game exquisitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it may not be the best actors. I mean, Christopher Lambert is a literal god, but
Christopher Lambert's great, but he's always been cast in these weird. Talk about whitewashing. Then they cast him. They cast him in The Highlander, and he's a French person playing a Scot, but then the only Scottish person in there playing a Spanish Egyptian. It's like, go fucking figure. Speaking with a Scottish accent, it's like, oh my god. That casting director needs to be killed too.
No, actually, I feel like he did it perfectly because of the simple fact of when you look at it in the 80s, when Connor is walking around in the 80s, and it's like, you talk funny. Where are you from? And he's like, lots of different places. You can kind of think to yourself, your accent, it's not quite American, it's not quite Scottish, it's not quite French. It's a blend of everywhere you've lived in.
You take it for granted with Connery. I'm on a submarine and I'm Russian. Yep.
Exactly. I take it.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm in the Untouchables. I'm an American. Fine, that's good. Yeah.
Of course you are, sure.
yeah, Mason, that's fine. Yeah.
It's the only other person who gets away with it is Liam Neeson, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liam Neeson gets away with it because in every he does try in some films, but it's just his voice. It's like, I'm Liam Neeson.
That's it. I mean, that speech from You Taken has become like iconic, and you hear his voice and go, yeah.
But like jumping back to what we were saying about, I mean, Uncharted. I feel like, okay, so in my head, there's two ways that it could have been done, and neither of them would have been what they're doing. The first way would have been go with the fan vote and Nathan Fallon. That short film they made, just make a big budget version of that. Chef's kiss, we're done. Maybe he comes back 2-3 times. I mean, there's like 3 games that he's in. I think the fourth one's someone else. Is he in the fourth one as well?
Yeah, Thief's End.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's 4 games. Hell, you make 4 films, done. Right? Or you could have gone for the really kind
5 games, actually.
Right. Okay, but you could have gone for the real kind of generic Hollywood version where I say you could have had someone like Mark Wahlberg playing him, right? And then I'm not saying it's a good idea. Like, I can see all of your faces. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but in the blind, let's get the most bankable star that we can who can portray this role.
Bradley Cooper.
Mark Wahlberg is the guy that I could have seen them picking and saying, yeah, we're going to stick him in this film.
Well, they did at one point. They actually did at one point. Mark Wahlberg was first choice by David O. Russell, who was supposed to be directing it the first time round, with Robert De Niro signed on to play Sully, and that fell apart. And now Mark Wahlberg is in this movie playing Sully, and I'm like, no.
Well, that's wise. They should get Harrison Ford to play it 35 years ago, and leave it the fuck alone. I mean, he shouldn't even be playing Indiana Jones anymore. So they don't need another Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider films. I mean, you know, they tried to redo Tomb Raider and it kind of died a death. I mean, hats off for them for not going, let's just go get the buxom girl to do it. But I think there's not enough redeeming features in that game. You know, there's a great series, but there's not enough characters to kind of flesh out a film.
True, but but you think all it is I feel like in the realm of Hollywood, all Uncharted really is just it's the popcorn movie that you can sit either just before or in between the tentpole movies of whatever year. So if you're like, okay, May is going to be, you know, this by Marvel, and then July is going to be this by Warner Brothers DC, and then October is going to be whatever by Marvel. Okay, how about this? How about February, March time, or maybe June, we'll throw out this action film that everyone can watch and just, you know, it's like a palate cleanser, basically.
For 150 million, probably sort of rough budget to do it real justice and this and that, it's going to be I agree, that would be the place for it, but it's going to be a hell of a gamble going up against the big blockbusters and stuff, and it's going to have to rely on a lot of gamers going, we want to see this. And gamers are very funny when they see a bad Sonic design, they go, nope, fuck that, nope. And so if they decide they don't like, say, for example, the casting, which is the case, they're just going to avoid it, or the reviews are going to come in early and say, fuck it, just play the games. And then they'll go, okay, we'll do that then. And then I think more so than anything, it's a hell of a gamble. I think they're hoping to get a new 4.5 point franchise out of it, as you say, but he's got a lot to contend with. But then everyone has Tom Holland, so you never know.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned, which was Tomb Raider. The guy who's directing the second one,
wait, there's a second Tomb Raider?
Yeah.
The guy who's directing the second one, have you ever seen in a field? Oh God, no. Oh God, I cannot remember the guy's name, but he's done some really. He's a British director, and he's done some really groundbreaking thrillers. God. Let me try and find his name, because I really want to get behind this, because it's good. Neil Marshall.
Ben Wheatley.
Ben Wheatley. So he's doing the second Tomb Raider film, and he's got the film has a lower budget, which is why I think it's going to be a bit better. It's going to be a bit more gritty. It's going to be a bit more accessible.
Well, I'm looking up this guy right now. I mean, he put some work in. I mean, he got Free Fire under his belt, High Rise, 2 episodes of Doctor Who, A Field in England. I think that's the film you were talking about.
Yeah, Field in England. Yeah.
Was that the one with like the Civil War soldiers in black and white and stuff?
Yes. Yeah.
That was surprisingly good. It was very weird and very indie and strange.
It's about psychedelics essentially.
Yeah,
I love Free Fire. That was all shot in Brighton, a warehouse in Brighton, doubling as a place in.
Yeah, it's literally up the road from me. I'm 10 minutes, 2-minute car drive from that warehouse.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got
Your neck of the woods
on his list of films, so he's done some work.
Yeah. I trust that guy with Tomb Raider. I was very Kill List. Is possibly one of the best revenge movies I've ever seen. If you've not seen it, watch it. It's great.
It's dark.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to take a spin on what you were saying there. But as for this film, I have no affinity to it. I don't. I liked seeing who's the guy that did the YouTube short?
Nathan Fallon.
Nathan
Fillion.
I like that little short. If the film is good or better than that, then I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be in safe hands. But it's passed through so many hands now. I don't know. I'm not excited for it. I'll say that. But when the first trailer hits, well, we can see. We shall see.
One thing I did want to say was, Greg, you said how like fans are really not fickle, but they'll like really just avoid something if they don't like it.
Yeah,
like that has not been my experience. Fans will, even if they hate it, they'll still be first in line. They'll just be first in line to ironically hate it.
I'm presuming studios are hoping on that, because I mean, there was a lot of people who were like, "We're not going to see Sonic," but then that was a classic case of someone actually listening to the fans and going, "We better get this right," because if they don't go,
that's just it. I mean, like, do you know how bad the Sonic thing was? It was to the point where Sega Europe literally stepped in and was like, no, you're changing that now. Because what was it, even though Sega gave them permission to go make the movie, etc., no one in the company knew there was a Sonic movie coming until the first trailer hit. No one except for whoever seriously, like, I had no clue. I was working there. No one knew what it was. Now, in the Sega QA office, I'll say it straight, I was there. The minute that trailer dropped, we had wanted signs of that fucking whatever that thing was, all over the office and stuff. And yeah, man, there was a lot of words about the way he looked going at the main company, and I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I might know something, but they had some words with Paramount, man. They really did. because for them as a company, they were looking at it to go and do a Marvel and make more stuff out of their IPs.
Right.
And if this didn't work for them, they didn't want it to be another Mario Brothers. They didn't want it to be, and to some degree, some people might say, well, they failed, but I think they actually won.
No, they actually won because the redesign, even if the film wasn't, I mean, I haven't seen the film yet. I intend to see it at some point. I've heard Jim Carrey.
It's all right. I saw it. It's okay.
I'll see it at some point. But the fact that they did something right compared to something at a similar time where the initial reaction to Cats came out and they could have gone, oh, maybe we should shelve this for a while and change it. And everyone, they'll love it when it comes out. And it got absolutely critical. So they're listening to people, and that's not a bad thing. I still think, though, that if I still think, Neil, that maybe they won't go for it if they decide they don't like it. But there's a case in point coming up in a little bit. So I'm going to put a pin in this because one of the later subjects will kind of highlight my point, I think. So.
Okay. I'm fascinated. That's going to be interesting.
But if you don't do this subject now, I'm going to look like a right.
But I mean, Sonic's a rare case because it did work in the end, and I think a lot of it's got to do with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey really did steal the show out of that film, and more to the point, it was kind of like the old Jim Carrey we grew up with. You know what I mean? Like, if you felt like you missed an old friend. And I really felt he really nailed it. Even bits where I shouldn't have laughed because it was just daft. Man, I was crying. I was literally crying with laughter. But, I mean, no, it was fair enough. It wasn't the Sonic movie that people probably wanted. If there were people that there were people that wanted it. I know a few people. But, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what they did for, like, a broader audience and introducing the character to even new people that never heard of Sonic before, I felt they did a really good job. And it's a kids
Sonic movie that everyone wanted, and maybe it's a Sonic movie we need right now.
Yeah, totally. No, but totally. They literally were like, we're going to make a kids movie, and it was an entertaining kids movie, and it had enough jokes in there for the adults as well. And that was probably due to hiring probably the best in the business at stand-up comedy, Mr. Jim Carrey, coming back to what he's good at. And I just thought it was a win. If they wanted to expand on Sonic, they could do with the sequel and give the fans what they want, because obviously some people have like a checklist of stuff. But this is exactly how the Marvel Universe started. They did Iron Man, they played it safe for what they needed to do with the story, and then they built upon it. And now, you know what I mean? Now everyone's in love with that. So
well,
we'll see what
happens. Like a good start to an extended universe, because you know the Universal Monster universe kind of died when Tom Cruise messed with the Mummy and it didn't do very well and stuff. So
well, that was the second reboot of that, wasn't it? Because Dracula Untold was the first one, and then they were like, "No, forget this movie."
And then the Wolfman was really bad as well. Dracula Untold was an awful film.
I love Wolfman.
I mean, Dracula Untold was a terrible, terrible film, and I love Luke Evans and I love the idea of Dracula, but they just did a bad version.
Yeah.
So that universe isn't going anywhere soon, to be honest. So.
No,
but back to Uncharted. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm a bit put off by Tom Holland being Nathan Drake myself. I'm a big fan of the franchise in terms of the games. I disagree with Neil when he says, "Oh, this is that little filler before the tentpoles." No, this needs to be a tentpole. This is a huge IP for Sony. Sony know about it. Sony know it is, and. No, I think there is a place in the market for a new type of Indiana Jones kind of thing if done right. And that little teaser, that little thing with Nathan Fillion, that was really good. The thing was, before that came out, I was a bit dubious about Nathan Fillion because he's great in Firefly and stuff. He's never really been on my radar, and obviously I know that the studio wanted an A-lister. You know what I mean? For Nathan Drake, that would be the obvious. I was a big fan of Bradley Cooper. I think he'd make a fantastic Nathan Drake myself. And that's if I was casting it going A-list. But then I saw that short with Nathan Fillion, and I was like, wow, I'm going to eat my words there because he was fucking good. My concern was he's too old, because even though he's he's the right age now, but maybe he's a little bit older now. But the fact is, if they're doing like more films down the line, do you know what I mean? They need to whip those films out real quick.
How old is that?
Extreme. They've got like a child playing him now.
Yeah.
But even if he is an adult now, he still looks like a child. I mean, he's
that's right.
Convincing Peter Parker age-wise.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, how old is Harrison Ford?
Harrison Ford's like
80
almost.
A million.
No, he's like 78 or 79. Okay,
apparently he's still going to be Indiana Jones.
He is.
I know, and I love Indiana Jones, and so that's why they should leave it alone.
I'm convinced now they should just, dudes, it's over. just
it was over at the end of the Last Crusade. I mean, the Crystal Skull.
You know what they should do. You know what they should do. He should just go to George and be like, that Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Those TV shows, that you did without me. Well, you had this old guy telling the stories with the eye patch. You need to CGI him out and put me in. That's what I want to see.
You know what? I mean, like, one thing is like, you disagree with me, and I do unfortunately disagree with you on this.
That's fine.
Like, you said that Sony know how big Uncharted is, and I would say arguably those who are fans of the games will definitely feel that it's something that should be a tentpole. But I'm like, as long as Indiana Jones is still something that is in development, it can't be a tentpole.
Yeah,
because even if
what do you mean by that?
Because
that makes no sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Okay,
if you take away the fact that Indiana Jones exists, like, as long as you know there is still the potential for another Indiana Jones film, what you're doing is you're basically putting Muhammad Ali up against some fresh-faced boxer who's got a little bit of a local following. That's the difference between Indiana Jones and Uncharted, because you're talking about this huge thing, and even though they're not connected, but they follow the same thread of someone who's hunting an ancient treasure, essentially, right? Obviously, the details are a lot finer and more detailed, but it's the treasure hunter. It's okay, here's the modern take on the treasure hunter.
But you could say the same thing for half these guys in tights that we see all the time.
No.
You could say the same thing about you could say something about a Marvel movie and something like Spawn.
No, though the comparison is completely different. You look at let's prime example. Let's
Marvel have a big IP.
Let's take the original Batman, right? Or we're taking Tim Burton's Batman, right?
Yeah.
Every Batman that comes out after that is compared to that. every dark superhero is compared to that. However, as long as they're not a billionaire whose parents get killed when he's a child.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. I see what you mean now. Sorry. I didn't get it until you put that comparison there.
Yeah, superhero is a genre, whereas this is almost, and I think it's a really good analogy that Neil's made. Unfortunately, the sad thing is using Ali as an example. Ali's unfortunately dead, and Harrison Ford is acting like he's got one foot in the grave, and the Indiana Jones franchise should be dead or rebooted in the sense of like sequels. I mean, if Shia LaBeouf wasn't a nightmare and slightly weird and Mutt wasn't so thing, he could have carried on the franchise. But if you're going to do that, then the Nathan Drake story is a good way of doing it. But yeah, I think it is dangerous going into production knowing they're still doing Indiana Jones, which people will go watch for the name alone, even though it probably won't be good. Just because the stories were slightly shit if George Lucas is involved, and the character is just awkward seeing an old man play it. But that said, I'll still go see Indiana Jones over it just because it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And I'll go, I'm going to go see this. I'm going to hate this, and they're going to put an old man in a fridge and it's going to survive a nuclear blast. I'm going to go, for fuck's sake. I still feel slightly warm inside because the Raiders thing will come on. I'll go. So that's kind of
and that's the bigger difference there. I think, Satch, is that people know who Indiana Jones is. You'll have to. No, and I'm not saying your point isn't valid. I'm just saying that people will need to be educated who Nathan Drake is to build that repertoire up. It's like when Indiana Jones came out, no one knew who the fuck Indiana Jones was, and the film was good, fortunately enough, and it's spawned a franchise. So I think besides one, you have two people to please. You've got the gamers and the casual audience, and so that's an uphill struggle, especially in today's age. I mean,
they failed by casting Tom Holland. I love Tom Holland, but he's not Nathan Drake, man. It's like they've lost the gamers. They have lost the gamers on that, because, like Greg said, gamers are fickle people, man. They're very passionate about stuff. I mean, Sega know that best, just literally. And unlike Sega, you can't redesign Tom Holland. That ain't happening.
Can you imagine trying to give him stubble?
No, I can't.
Thinking about the way he looks like now. I'm sure he probably shaves, but you imagine the idea of Tom, don't shave for the duration of the shoot. And it's just like
I'm worried to have this weird
makeup and
thing.
Yeah. It's just like a little few hairs here. It wouldn't be anything much. They'll just have to put one on him.
Like peach fuzz.
Yes. But okay, let's move on. We'll move on to the next topic. And the next topic is Halloween Kills trailer. And what did you guys think of it? I'm just gonna put a thing up on screen while you're talking about it.
Okay. Well, do you want me to wait?
No, go for it. It's up on screen.
I watched the trailer. Now, of all the horror movie slashers, Michael Myers is my absolute favorite.
Right.
Halloween is my probably my favorite horror film. The original, original John Carpenter classic. That's my movie. That's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to the degree, I enjoy Halloween so much that the majority of the films I've enjoyed.
Right.
I didn't enjoy Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I wasn't a big fan of Halloween 6. I wasn't greatly impressed with Halloween Resurrection. I love the rhymes, but he's not the guy for Halloween. But I just I loved. I'm not a fan. I've said it many a times. I'm not a fan of making the film that discounts every other film.
Right.
So, but when they did this Halloween, and it was okay, Halloween 1 exists, everything else does not. I was brilliant. And I watched the trailer, but it's a bit it's a teaser trailer, but it's a bit kind of anticlimactic because it's just the simple. If I didn't know that they were making a sequel, and spoiler alert, they're making another sequel after this one.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a trilogy, no?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a trilogy, like the definitive trilogy.
Right.
Can you call it a trilogy when it's already like the 17th film of the Halloween series?
Well, all right.
Isn't that going like this? There's a Marvel trilogy somewhere in the middle of all the other Marvel.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's of what is canon films, of what is going to be canon official story.
Canon films went bankrupt years ago, mate. I'm joking.
This is going to be this will be the third film, and there's going to be one more film after that, so it will be a quadrilogy, whatever you
quadrilogy.
Call it.
Yeah, quadrilogy.
Yeah, quadrilogy. And I think it doesn't give anything away other than us knowing that it probably takes place on the same night.
Is it bad
in like the 24-hour period? But it's sort of like something like that. I'd prefer to never see that trailer. I'm just like, you sold me with the first one. I know, obviously, for the casual fan, that doesn't work. And, you make a film, you need to promote it. But
he says it gives nothing away, but surely the plot's going to be the same as every other one ever. He's not going to die. He'll be a little twist at the end and he'll come back. I mean, it's kind of hints that, she's left him at the end of the last one and set the house on fire. And now the fire engines are going to go, no, don't put it out. And of course it's going to put it out, because otherwise that would be it. That would be the film. Oh, he's finally died. The guy doesn't die. And I guess, I like horror to an extent, and I like the slasher films when I watched them in the 80s and to the 90s. And I think they came full time and did perfectly ended with sort of the Scream franchise, which kind of went, it's become a parody of itself. Let's enjoy that and point it out. It's very well written. And then they just carried on. And now if I want to watch something, I want to watch something like Hereditary or Midsummer and be like creeped out and freaked out. I don't want to see a dude just run around. It's the same shit I've seen. So I love John Carpenter. Don't get me wrong, the guy's an auteur. He's brilliant, and and the original Halloween's awesome, and stuff like The Thing and all this are absolute classics. But I don't want to see, I think they're doing it to a death. And the only saving grace is they kind of went a bit wrong in the middle, but they brought Jamie Lee Curtis back recently, and she's obviously absolutely a legend. So she'll bring it to a new level and what have you, but she's going to kind of be playing with, in my opinion, sort of bad sort of like tools in order to make an all right film possibly good. But then I'm not the fan that you are of it, of the sort of the slasher sort of thing anymore. I liked it back in the days of Freddy Krueger and Michael
Jason. But I think it's, one thing I do like about it is by doing what they did with the first sequel, i.e. the 2018 Halloween, the fact that they reestablished it as, okay, you know what, we're not going to say they're brother and sister. That, this ain't Star Wars. Bye-bye. That's gone. And we're going to say, all right, what happens to you if for 40 years you're just the survivor of this one terrible night? And taking that and, basically giving Laurie Strode the Sarah Connor Terminator 2 treatment, where she's like, I've been waiting for this moment. But
it's interesting you should mention sorry.
Yeah, but what I like about that is, if you look at the last Halloween film as, well, this is what she's like when she's got 40 years of preparation. This film will kind of flip it on its head, because it's like, well, all your preparation kind of failed because he's not dead. So what do you do now? What do you do now that you don't have, a mousetrap, a house that's a mousetrap? Now that you don't have all of these tricks and all of these hidden guns and hidden ways to kill somebody, what do you do now that you're stuck? You have to deal with him in that way.
One of my issues is, and I'd be intrigued because obviously you are a fan of them, is and it's interesting you should mention Terminator. Is this a fairly new thing of ongoing franchise? It's not just reboots and stuff like that. It's suddenly oh, now this isn't canon, but now we're doing a sequel to the original thing, but you have to ignore these ones. And for those who haven't studied it as if it's some sort of essay series, it's very confusing. So like the new James Cameron Terminator was the first, now is the only canon one after Judgment Day, and everything else was bullshit. And now I'm getting confused. It's like, so wasn't Jamie Lee Curtis in H2O, but that's not canon now, and the ones in between aren't, but this one is. And so for someone who's like dipping into it and wants to maybe go, okay, I'd like to give it a go, but it's like, where do I begin? Which films exist? Which films don't exist? What's this? And it's so confusing. It's it's like watching a time travel movie and not knowing where you are at any given point. So I think it seems of kind of retconning everything, And I know Star Wars did that a little bit where J.J. Abrams goes, we're just going to ignore Rian Johnson's direction on this and go back to what I was doing. They never actually retconned anything. They just kind of went, oh yeah, when we said your parents weren't anything, yeah, they weren't, but your grandparent, whoa, there's a big but they never actually retconned it. They didn't say ignore that movie as much as the fans would have liked that. Whereas, yeah, this and Terminator, they're doing that. And for people who are trying to keep up with it, are they going to go, oh, I just can't keep up now. Is it worth trying to get invested? What if I watch this film and then next film says, actually, no, we didn't like that film, so just ignore that. And it's like, it's a struggle. So
I kind of feel like in that regard, like, and I'm going to apologize because I know I keep jumping in, and I know Sacha and Joe definitely have points. I feel like in regards to that, that's the moment that I feel like every comic book fan has had probably in the last maybe 5 to 6 years, where like the latest Marvel trailer comes out and you're like, the work colleague or the friend at uni will be like, yeah, can I just ask you this question? So I saw this trailer for this film and I saw the Marvel logo. So can you tell me about the Guardians of the Galaxy? And then, it's like, that's where the person sits back in their chair and they're just like, come, my child, I shall tell you a mighty tale. I feel like that's what's going to happen with like with all these films that are being retconned now. So it's like, oh, you like horror films, right? Yeah. Okay. So what's this new Halloween about? And you're like, okay, so you want the long version or the short version?
Maybe I'll give it a go when you can explain the backstory, and then I'll watch it. I think you'd be a good person to guide. I'm happy to take the Marvel, sort of duties there, because I'll explain that to anyone. But yeah, I just get confused with the Halloween. And we should probably let the others have a chat, really, shouldn't we? It's not like it's their podcast or anything.
As it goes for Friday the 13th for Halloween, I don't really have apart from the first one. I haven't really watched any. I watched H2O. I was working in the cinema when that came out, and I found that laughably entertaining.
I'm not sure that was what they were going for.
I mean, LL Cool J's in it. That's just.
He's in Deep Blue Sea, and that was entertaining. So yeah.
There you go. So,
I like Samuel L. Jackson because he's the only black dude who's been in more than one horror film and has survived.
Okay,
You see, and he lived in Halloween. I'm like, you got a horseshoe up your ass that is diamond encrusted, mate.
I didn't even. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I haven't seen this the requel, as what they call them now. But it looked intriguing. Everyone that has seen it said it's good. So I mean,
highly recommend it. I couldn't recommend it more.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's you can watch the first one and go straight to this one, essentially, right? You can. Yeah. That's what I thought. I mean, like with the Terminator thing, there was just Linda Hamilton said to I can't remember who she was talking to. I think it was the Hollywood Reporter. She was saying that the franchise is dead now, and I don't think it's. You could watch Terminator 1 and 2 and then go straight to Dark Fate, and it matches up. What the beginning of that is mind blowing. How they made her 29 again, or however old she was. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I think if I mean, I think the Terminator franchise is a bit bigger than. Would you agree? The Terminator franchise is a little bit bigger than Halloween.
I'd say it's a way bigger.
Okay.
Not a little bit, like humongous bigger.
Okay, so that had a lot more to lose. With Halloween, I think if you make a good requel and then carry on, if you carry on with the same formula, keep the characters, keep Jamie Lee Curtis's character grounded in a particular way, then I think, because it's essentially her story, right?
Yeah, it is. I think Halloween has one luxury that I would say that most horror films don't have. I mean, actually, I'm completely incorrect, because the big powerhouses, i.e., Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, all do have this thing, which is this requel, as it's now called, is coming off the back of a remake.
Right. Oh, so yeah, that's right.
You think the last two Halloween films before the 2018 one were the Rob Zombie ones.
Oh, right, yeah.
So it was like, I loved Halloween, his first Halloween. Mm-hmm. I was a good enough fan of the second one, but I feel like because those films were quite divisive, it opened the door to have this, okay, well, we're going to scrap everything and say, only thing that happened was Halloween 1, and then here we are 40 years later.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean,
Terminator, like every couple of years there was a new sequel, and it's like, no, we're all connected. They're definitely connected. We're like, okay, you can scrap It was like, all right, you can scrap Terminator 3.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't scrap Terminator 3 because then there was like Terminator Salvation, which had the same characters in it.
Yeah, technically, yeah. And it wasn't dismissing it, but it wasn't saying it didn't happen.
Yeah, it wasn't saying like, okay, you have to watch Terminator 3, but it was saying, if you've watched Terminator 3, you know who this person is. Mm-hmm. So there was that, and then like we got to, what was after that? Was it Genesis?
Yeah, that's the one that killed it. It really fell apart.
When did franchises need like university level footnotes to understand them? When did this happen? When did the word fucking requel get created? I'm just saying. This is
who did that?
Bryan Singer, Superman Returns.
That's it. Yeah. That's the start of them. Yeah, Superman Returns. And
it was like, what? You could just dismiss a couple of them that you don't like? Okay, let's go. And then some. I don't get it though, because like that film was not financially viable, so I don't get why people follow in that trend. But
I mean,
with Terminator, I kind of got it when you know what it was with James Cameron. I actually think his ending for Terminator was really Terminator 2, and he didn't expect to direct another one.
Yeah, he did. He literally made Terminator 3D like a couple of years later.
Yeah, but that was a theme park ride, man. I mean, he didn't expect or even plan. It wasn't like George Lucas where he planned stuff like before. Because what you've got to understand with Terminator 2, that only came about because the producers really wanted to do another one because it was successful. Yeah, and then, rather than give someone else the directing reins, and because, like, I guess one of the producers was married to him at the time, she was like, "Do you want to do a second one?" And he was like, "Well, I have no ideas, but let me think about it for a week, and if I come up with something, I'll do it." First thing he did, he rang up Linda Hamilton. He goes, "Do you mind us doing a sequel?" And she'd just been turned down for a role where she auditioned to be a mental patient, and she got told that she's not crazy enough. So she turned around to him. She goes, "If you make Sarah Connor fucked up and in a mental institute, I'm there." So it's like, okay, I'll do that.
So she signed on just to put the middle finger at the producers that turned her down for another role.
Pretty much. That's pretty much.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, it does happen a lot, especially with actors, man. Trust me. But Joe knows what I'm talking about. But all I'm gonna say is, like, it wasn't like a planned out thing. None of these films were. And when it came to Terminator 3, they were like, the producers were like, "Yeah, we got the rights back. Do you want to direct it? We've got a script." And he's like, "Well, I ain't directing it. If there's going to be a Terminator, I'm going to write it." You know what I mean? And it was like, that's why he never came back. And
It's funny though.
with Arnold wasn't going to do Terminator 3 unless James Cameron was. And James Cameron was like, look, they're good people. If you really don't want to do it, then don't do it. But I tell you what, though, let them sweat. Just ask them for a ridiculous amount of money. And chances are they won't make a movie without Arnold Schwarzenegger, or better yet, they'll pay you. So he asked them for an obscene amount of money, something in the 40 million range, and they gave it to him. Because at the time, 25 million was the peak for any A-lister. And Schwarzenegger got it for T3. And that movie was made purely just because, you know, hey, we can, and we're going to take your money. But with Dark Fate, yeah, he got the rights back, but he was in Avatar Land. He didn't give a fuck. He had a writer's room for this Terminator. He had like about 6-7 writers, and that's the best they could come up with. And you know, that he'd only like look in on them on the weekends. And when I see that film, it looks like a writer's room made it, because I thought Dark Fate was just as big a piece of shit as Genesis. It had some cool elements in it, but it had some real dog shit things about it as well.
You've got a really interesting scale if you think Dark Fate is as bad as Genesis.
Yeah, I do. From a story perspective, totally. Bad screenwriting 101 is there. The only thing good about it was probably her being a Terminator killer and being like all fucked up because it was what we love from T2. Outside of her being that person, everything else was, why kill him off? Why have this alternative timeline if it's just going to be the same shit? And then the other thing I hate about Terminator films in general after T2, post T2, is like, oh, what gimmick are we going to have now? He's going to have a third hand. He's going to like split into two. It's like, you can't top the T-1000, mate. I'd say if you were going to do a Terminator, if you were going to do one, and to be honest, personally, I don't want one. It stops and ends at 2 for me. Go back to a T-800 where it's just a killing machine. You know what I mean? We don't need no gadgets or
I agree with that.
Because if you go back and watch Terminator 1, that's a terrifying fucking thing, man. You know, he's like walking around, you know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to be fucking Arnold, man. It could be like anybody. It's like that was the original point of the Terminator, that it could blend in and be anything. And then when they cast Arnie, obviously that changed, but then they tried to go back to the original concept with T2 by making him a police officer and a slender kind of build, and that's where the whole idea of like liquid metal and the advanced model came. But a Terminator could be anybody. It could be Doc Cotton from EastEnders, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, it's that like, one I'd watch.
I know, though, but that's the point. They're infiltrators. He says it himself in the first Terminator. He says they were infiltrator units where they could blend in and you didn't know who to trust and stuff. But, I mean, you know, I would like to see a low-budget Terminator movie. I know we've gone off topic here, but at the same time, why make the movie? Because you're never going to top what we've got. They've tried 4, 5, 6 dozen times. They even tried to bring Linda Hamilton back. That didn't work.
I think the theme of the whole podcast seems to be stop flogging. You know, if we're talking about Indiana Jones, Halloween, Terminator, stop flogging dead horses. You know,
totally.
While you're behind, you know, really, just leave it alone. But everyone's scared of new IP. They're like, oh, this might not work. And the best stuff coming out is new IP. It is, you know.
The funny thing
back to this trailer, because I haven't said my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Back to this trailer. Okay, by the way, I saw the 30-second version. I was totally unaware that there was a longer version. But you know what? Had the 30-second version been the trailer, I would have said this about the trailer. That's an amazing trailer. Okay, but I thought it was hilarious because it was like, oh my god, so didn't he die in the last film? Oh no, he didn't. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to put him out, and I was like, that's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. I'll check it out. But do I really want to check out? I didn't even check out the last one. The only Halloween films I've watched is 1 and 2, and I fell asleep in 3. And I just never went. I never went down the rabbit hole.
If there's a Halloween trailer and you need to watch the trailer to realize that he hasn't died, then you're kind of missing the point of the Halloween film. It's kind of as soon as they go, there's going to be a new Halloween film. It's like, well, he didn't die then, did he?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
I'd love it if they do go, no, he did die, and now it's his son or daughter is pissed off or whatever. Well, they actually played in it. It'd be nice if they actually moved it forward, but obviously they never will. So it's
that was probably the best thing about the Scream films.
Yeah.
It's like
you know they were dead, and then it was like someone else, and that would work. I mean, again, I've got nothing but love for Screamfall because they played on the tropes of the slasher.
Oh yeah, totally.
So.
Well, that's Kevin. What's his name? Kevin Williamson, the guy that wrote it, that wrote Dawson's Creek as well. That guy, back in the late 90s, he was the go-to horror guy. That I Know What You Did Last Summer. I forget what else he did, but The Faculty. He was. You know what? That was a guy that clearly grew up on all this shit and knew how to dissect it and breathe a new life to it. That had it go on throughout the late 90s and early 2000s. I think he did. I think he also wrote, what's the other one? The Final Destination, the first one. And
these are all good. And then he did something slightly different. Final Destination, Faculty was interesting. These are all pretty good things in the slash.
Yeah, that's right. And then after that, he just dropped mic and was like, right, I've got this thing based on my childhood. It's called Dawson's Creek. Go watch all 5 seasons of it. It's sick. And that's my slight pimp out for anyone that's not seen Dawson's Creek, because it's good. It's Joe there. Joe is there. Yeah. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on Halloween. I'm not like the hugest fan. I like the first 2 movies. Haven't seen the last one because I was just like, oh, here we go again. I would say. But the trailer did make me laugh. It did make me chuckle because it was just like, well, I guess he's coming back. Not that I didn't know that already, but it was just the way it was done. I was just like, seriously, is that it? Is that it? That is genius and stupid at the same time.
Obviously I'm biased because I'm a fan. Yeah. But I would absolutely say for anyone who is, especially if you're disillusioned with the current state of films, especially horror, definitely watch 2018's Halloween.
Does it retcon like everything except for 1?
Yes. Nothing exists.
What about 2? What about 2?
Number 2 doesn't exist.
Really?
It's only Halloween 1. Because you remember Halloween 2, it wasn't bad, but Halloween 2 was John Carpenter's way of being like, all right, we ain't doing a fucking third one.
Right.
That's what his plan was. Yeah. He was like, yep, okay, well, we did it the first time where it was like ambiguous. He got away because you look once and he's there, and you look again and he's not there. But I'm like, he was like, all right, well, you know what? He's dead. He's going to be dead as can be. He ain't coming back. He's done. And then they were like, oh, we're going to make Susan and the Witch. And no, we're going to find a way to bring him back.
The dark side of the Force has many abilities. Just saying.
All right, I'm taking back over.
Yes.
Okay, I'm moving on. On to the next topic. Bird Box 2 in development. Who the fuck cares?
I'm out. I'm totally out.
Didn't see the first one, don't care. Not going to see the second one, don't care. Next. Make time up. We lost in the Halloween discussion. Let's get. Fuck it. Who cares? Yeah. I think you've summed it up perfectly there, mate.
Bird Box is essentially what was the other film with Joe Kosinski?
The Quiet Place.
Quiet
Place. And there's a part 2 of that, and there's a part 2 of this.
I mean, I will actually.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, go on, Greg.
At least with A Quiet Place. It is. There was you can look at you can watch the first film and be like, I can see how you might continue.
Yeah, because they've got the world. They've got a world there.
You're on a farm. You're on a farm for the entire duration of the film, and then we're like, oh well, you know what? This is what this family dealt with in isolation. Let's introduce civilization to them. See what that's like. Cool. Bird Box, I'm like, I don't want to see Bird Box, and I don't want to see it for one reason. When the first one came out, I didn't watch it, but when the first film came out, the amount of people who were doing this dumbass Bird Box challenge, and I was like, natural selection, we need to upgrade natural selection, right?
Dude, I think it's going right now, mate. It's called coronavirus.
I'm wearing a mask still, against my liberty, and vaccines are bad, and 5G is where the coronavirus has come from. It's like,
oh my god, yeah, I heard that as well.
This is going to sort the wheat out from the chaff.
Yeah.
I agree completely with Neil. I think that I think it's an idea. It's a nice high concept idea, and I haven't seen it, but not because I was adverse to the idea. I just never got. There were so many other things that I wanted to watch beforehand. I just kind of went to the bottom of the pile. A Quiet Place, I think, was absolutely phenomenal, and I think I mean, obviously, John Krasinski showed himself as a director and stuff like that, and again, high concept. I mean, they're very different. They're almost exactly different sides of the same coin, isn't it? One you can't see, one you can't hear. But they're going to struggle to. The Quiet Place kind of came out after Bird Box, didn't it? But took the similar idea, but did it better.
No, it came out before. Before.
Well, there you go then. So Quiet Place was so good. I mean, the scene with giving birth and the tension and the ability. That
was really good.
It was something that, again, like, the horror genre needed mixing up. And I'm sorry to go. I'm not reopening the can of worms, but I don't think rehashing any of the slash movies is where it needs to go. Stuff like, as I mentioned before, stuff like Hereditary and Midsummer and films like that, they're disturbing. Or going with something like Quiet Place, which is half horror and part thriller, but is absolutely brilliant. I agree.
I
say, I mean, I'm a hypocrite because I also love stuff like It, which is a kind of a remake or recall or whatever the fuck it is.
No,
it's actually such a first because the first film was a TV movie.
Yeah,
it's
Stephen King, right? There's a whole bunch of Stephen King films that need to be remade with a budget, right? I
agree. I mean, The Mist was excellent, and they had the most screwed up ending in the history of horror movies, really, and all that. So but going back to Bird Box, I couldn't really care less. I'll watch the first one eventually one day when I've finished all the rest of Netflix, which may happen at some point with coronavirus. I'm working my way through it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of other things that you can get to before you get to that.
Yeah, I think that's where it stands on mine.
I just think Bird Box came out at the wrong time. It's all right, but it came out the same year as Quiet Place, and it was very similar. And Quiet Place was a better movie, which is getting a sequel, and I think deserves one because of the world that they built and the nature of the creature and the rest of the family that survives. They're dealing with the grief of the dad being gone, dad being, it's got that family dynamic, you know what I mean? Bird Box is very similar, but it's nowhere near as good. Even on a technical level, it's nowhere near as good. If anything, it's just a cheap buck just to put something out. You know what I mean? That's literally all it is. I think they said everything they needed to in the first one, and I guess it's more of the same.
More Bird Box challenges and more people to go the way of Darwin intended. Then
I guess
Darwinism is here to stay. Okay, on to the next topic. Okay, so it looks like Tenet has been.
There's been an update on this.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the update first, and then so Tenet's been pulled indefinitely from the cinema or from Warner Brothers listing, and so that I guess it's going to be next year. This film comes out, or they're going to wait and see what coronavirus does to the cinema industry, and then we have to take a hit and release it streaming or whatever. And I don't think Christopher Nolan wants to do that, but it might be the case. I was saying this to Satch the other day, sent him a text, so I think the film industry it's on its way out. Well, the cinema version of it anyway. I don't think this bodes well for going to a multiplex or a cinema now. And the other side of that is that China, they've got a 2-hour rule, and his film comes up to 2 hours and 45 minutes. Is that right, Satch?
Yeah, that's right.
So they would have to cut 45 minutes out somehow to.
It just wouldn't make sense. It's gonna.
Oh yeah.
You cut out 4 minutes of a Nolan film, and you'll never understand it again. And this is meant to make Inception look like sort of spot books in the sense that it's meant to be ridiculously complicated. That Inception is going to look like my first nursery sort of movie in comparison. So it's going to be they can't afford to do that. But then China's a massive market; they can't really afford to lose. I mean, you know, you get so many things where you see these Chinese actors popping up in American films just because that's China's way of going, okay, we'll show you a movie as long as our guys can be the heroes. This is why in action films there's often the Americans and the Chinese working together to save the world and stuff. So well, we won't even talk about how they remade Red Dawn with the Chinese as the bad guys, and then after it finished filming went, oh shit, Chinese is a huge film market, and then CGI'd North Korean flags over every single Chinese thing. So you've got these Chinese actors now playing North Koreans because apparently they all look the same according to Hollywood producers, and some really bad CGI'd flags just so they can try to get it into China. It's like,
I never saw it because the original was better.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen.
Back to our whole theme of the whole podcast.
Well, I've seen both of them. They're both good for what they are, but it's like the original is like 100% 1980s American machismo.
Yeah, totally.
The remake was basically, you know, like it was basically for the Hunger Games generation. Like, we're just gonna, you know, like chances are anyone who watches this film probably doesn't know or isn't a fan of the original. Like, I'm sure like the majority of people who watched the new Red Dawn and who like definitively love it probably don't know who Patrick Swayze is, which I'm like in the world that should be a crime. Like, if you don't know who that, like, if you don't know, like, you don't have to know the original Red Dawn, but if you don't know,
every female on the planet knows who Patrick Swayze because of Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, even contemporary ones now.
It's like you either know it through Dirty Dancing or you know it through Ghost.
Yeah, it's like an initiation movie, man. Seriously.
But it's like you know, like in regards to Tenet, I mean, firstly, I think it's a damn good thing that it's not coming out in cinemas here right now. Pull it off the slate. It's got to wait. For the simplest reason that I'm like, we you know, we've made jokes about it where we say, oh, natural selection. I'm like, look, the general populace of this planet is dumb, right? Sorry, hate all you want. It's a fact. Because you know what? When you got people doing bird box challenges and all these like, oh, Corona challenge, I'm gonna lick a toilet seat. Clown. But I say like this, something like a Christopher Nolan film is bound to just basically just force a huge amount of people into a cinema right now. And regardless of what people think about the virus or whether it's contagious and how you can catch it and all of these other things, having large amounts of people in a confined space is a bad idea right now. Just at present moment, it's a bad idea. Let's get to a better point and then you can do it. And when you get to that better point, throw out Tenet. Let Tenet, it'll be the highest grossing film of 2021.
It won't, because there won't be any cinemas.
and even to click onto that point where you said about, you know, it's going to be a real test for movie theaters, I think that's a good thing. I think right now at this present moment, regardless of how many franchises and films I love and all of that, you can see behind me there's a huge love. I think right now film studios are in this position where they just throw ungodly amounts of money at projects. Basically, like, you know, we're going to throw some shit at the wall and whatever sticks is gold. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are so many films, like, you think about when you think we're, you know, all of the age where we've watched films from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And I'm like, not all of these films, there's a reason films become cult films. And most of them don't have these ungodly high budget, big budgets. Most of them, you have a regular budget, a modest budget. And when you know, it's like, look, when you take money away, creativity shines, right? You don't get El Mariachi when you're throwing millions at it. You don't get Clerks throwing millions at it. You don't get Reservoir Dogs throwing millions at it.
I get what you're saying, but those films could easily go to a streaming site now. I think what I'm going for is the preservation of something that is quite unique.
Because you're never, but that's the thing, you're never ever going to replicate. I don't care how black your curtains are, I don't care how big your TV is, you'll never ever be able to replicate what a cinema does.
But also, that's even more poignant with Christopher Nolan films, because this guy is an advocate for shooting in IMAX more than any other director.
Yeah.
He's using more and more IMAX to the point where he's shooting almost completely in it now. And, you tell him that he'll never see a cinema screen, let alone an IMAX cinema, but just even a cinema screen. And it really is like, it's like, shooting in ultra 4K and then watching it on a Cafe Roast TV with a Betamax speed. It doesn't make sense. So it's almost an insult to the directors who are embracing technology. And all those films you mentioned, I agree completely. And some of the best films I've seen recently are smaller films, things that where it's about the directors. I've mentioned the horror things I've liked recently, stuff like Jojo Rabbit's brilliant. You don't watch on Netflix, you can watch on this and stuff like that. But I'd want to see Christopher Nolan at least first I want to see it first for the spectacle in the cinema, and then I want to watch it another 17 times at home just to fucking decipher it and understand what the hell's going on. But you need that
first experience,
and he's made it to be done like that, and so he's going to work tooth over nail to try to make sure that's shown in the cinema first. So
I'll say this about this whole period. The cinema survived the 1930s, the market crash of the 1930s, and that reinvented cinema to a degree. I hope this will be the same event for cinema going. I hope things are restructured. They manage to work things. I know AMC have worked things out, so they're fine until next year. And so, as I kind of agree with you, Neil, that there could be good things that come out of this whole event, and there'll be a lot of restructuring in how films are made. I mean, the cinema industry should have listened to Spielberg and Lucas like 20 years ago when they said that it's getting out of hand, the budgets are getting out of hand, and so.
Yeah, because you look at I'm by no means some historical cinephile or anything, but I'm just watching through history. I'm to me, the two biggest, strongest points of recent history in films were, I'd say, the mid-70s and the mid-90s. Mid-70s and mid-90s, right? Because both those periods of time, we had where the shift moved away from what has been established and what has come before. We follow this blueprint, we follow this formula. And it was those 70s, you look at the people who came out of the 70s. We're talking about, we got Spielberg, we got Lucas, we got Scorsese and Coppola, we got De Palma, we got these people that came out of this thing of, all right, the studio system is dead. Here's the new launch. Mm-hmm. And then again in the 90s, it became, well, who's the independent filmmaker? Who's this person who's just going to be you know what? I can make a film on my own, and it will appeal to the public. I have an audience because my audience are people like me, and they're going to like what I put out. And we got that in the 90s with, obviously, the Rodriguez's, the Tarantino's, the Kevin Smith's, damn it, I can't remember the guy's name, but he made Slacker, right? It's, we had these people who were doing this. And when you pin that up, and then after that, all of that, those guys kind of moved into the thread of what is currently happening today and nowadays. And there seems to be a change ever so slightly, because it's you look at the action genre, and now the action genre is getting a reinvention by people who know what they're doing. I.e., you look at Deadpool 2, you look at John Wick, you look at films like that. It's people who are action, they were stuntmen or they were fight choreographers. They know their way up, they know where their way through a fight scene. So they're making films where they're like, I'm gonna take you through a fight scene. It's gonna be done well. And I'm sure, I have no doubt that these things are happening in every genre. It's just, maybe it's more kind of prominent in something like an action film, especially when on one hand you've got John Wick, you know, and even you look at something like Daredevil, it's very, very similar. It's low lighting. It's this person's going to get beaten up, right? Okay, it's not going to look all stylish and flashy. There probably won't be one-liners, but this person is going to get bloodied. And then the flip side of it is, you know, the Avengers. You know, and it's like the Avengers is art, it's beauty, but it also needs $200 million thrown at it. Yeah, you can't. It's that's a tentpole film. It's something that can't really be replicated in a smaller scale, even if you tried, which many people have. Yeah, I think The Boys does it really well in a very scaled way that you can do a TV show, but yeah, again, night and day. The Boys. Has anyone seen The Boys?
Yeah, I've seen The Boys. Yeah. This goes back to the idea that I think Deadpool was massively it became like the second most successful R-rated movie in history. Yeah. And it suddenly showed that you can do superheroes and it doesn't have to be just for kids and teenagers. You can do it R-rated and everyone goes see it. And that was a massive turning point, because then from that became Daredevil and Punisher and all the new series and The Boys and all of this stuff now. And to an extent, things like, you know, I mean, John Wick, there were violent action films, but there wasn't violent superhero films. And now all of them are, you know, a lot of the new ones are a lot more gritty, even if they're somewhere in between. You've got stuff like Umbrella Academy, which is, you know, it touches on things, but it's still sort of, it's a bit more.
It's in between.
Yeah, it really is. It's not as gory, but it's quite irreverent and, you know, knob jokes and swearing and stuff. So that's good, because, you know, once again, it comes to the case of it doesn't have to just be all big money and big budget thrown at it. Yeah. So making these, I mean, don't get me wrong, some of The Boys still probably cost a fair bit to make. Or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, especially for something like Tenet, Christopher Nolan likes to do things practically and in camera. So I know that film cost north of 200 million, so it's got a. I mean, I can understand why Warner Brothers has removed it from the schedule, because they want to maximize the profit that this film makes if and when cinemas open again, and so that's going to be a real testament to when because you're going to have to educate people to go back out to places. I mean, I've been to a few places myself in the weeks that things have opened up again, and at my friend's bar in Queen's Park, she's it started off slow, but they have set rules. You can only book when you in advance. You can only sit only a certain amount of people to a table, and so far so good. They haven't had any, and you have to sign up for the app. They've got their own app where you have to, if something's happened to you, you either let them know or it tracks you or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what it does, but no, it's there to alert you if someone had coronavirus there. And so they've put out all the stops, and I think where the cinema chains are involved, they'll have to do the same and re-educate people to let them know it's okay. Staggered seating. We clean the cinemas every showing. If once people are educated and how, and just it will be a gradual thing. And I think that will be the key to making people feel comfortable going back out. It'll take a while, but I think that's the only way now.
Well, they've done the right thing in delaying it, and all the big films that like Bond and Tenet and Black Widow that could really do with cinema stuff before it goes onto the streaming services have made the right decision. And it does create this weird little time where where all these films are going to come out massively later, and then after that it's going to get very weird, because then there's going to be a time when no films have been made for many months. And the way we make films, because cinema stuff might, as you said, that's when you might get this weird, strange shift in creativity and how we look at to make films. Are we making them more for streaming services? Are all the big budget things now going to be on Netflix and made for Netflix or whatever? So yeah, it's all going to change. But the ones that were made beforehand and stuff, it's going to be, I don't blame them for pushing it back, because you do want to see them in cinema. So
I'll tell you what, with that staggered space of films releases, this is where James Cameron will drop Avatar 2. So it will just make so much money throughout those weeks and months that if you don't want to see that, you can go see Avatar 2.
James Cameron is probably.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. He's sitting there, and he's probably just sitting there thinking to himself, like, he's like, on one hand, he's like, I hope.
He's out there filming the additional footage now, because they took a break before the pandemic. They were always going to film around now. Yeah. And luckily, New Zealand was the first one to let the doors open. There was a whole thing on the internet where he was doing the 14 days like thing where you land and then you're isolated for 14 days. And now they've already started production on the reshoots for 2 and 3 right now. It was supposed to come out. Well, it's supposed to come out this year, but obviously Disney bought it, and then they shift release dates, etc. And then Disney greenlit 4 and 5 because he had the scripts
all 60
anyway.
of them. All 60 of them.
They were like, okay, we'll greenlit everything, because you got to understand, like, the deal with Fox was they were like, okay, we'll let you shoot 2 and 3 back to back, but depending on how much they make, we'll fund 4 and 5 after. So he wrote the script for all of them. That's why he's not made anything in ages. He's written all 5 of them.
He hasn't made anything in 20 years.
Yeah, literally when Disney bought the company, they were like, well, the money's already been spent by Fox. Fuck it. There you go, green light. For them, it's like they'll make that money back on the first film, maybe. And even if they don't, they've got 4 films to make back what they've spent. So
Disney knows how to make money out of franchises. They're one of the only places that does. And you might love or hate Star Wars or the MCU, or whatever,
Disney,
even the remakes of all the classic Disney cartoons, but they all make money.
Yeah, they do. They make the bank.
I don't think they've made a flop since John Carter. Really, they just churn out good shit.
Yeah.
I like that film, but it didn't make the money back. But everything else does now.
Oh, I love John Carter, man. That was so cool.
It didn't make the money because at the time, spending $200 million on a untested property was freaking insane.
To
be honest, that's probably what assisted in. I mean, obviously, it was a trend in, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010. But it probably one of the things that really assisted in us not getting original IPs is because they were like, all right, we're going to throw out John Carter. It's based on these books. Yeah. People know it. And then it didn't do anything. And then they'd be like other studios, because, film studios are like sheep. So they were like, whoa, hold on. Disney did bad with this?
What's shocking is John Carter, as most of us agree, I think, or all of us agree, it was a good film. Whereas I got less than 10 minutes through Artemis Fowl recently and went, oh my God, this is so bad. I don't know
Was it so bad? I've not seen it. I've heard it's bad.
Dialogue, the main acting from the main guy, he was like Daniel Radcliffe bad in the original Harry Potter. So who was bad? I'm sorry, I love Daniel Radcliffe. Apparently he's the nicest guy, bar Keanu Reeves, but he's a fucking awful actor in the first Harry Potter, and you've shown up more because all the other people around him are all like Danes and Sirs, or just really talented kid actors. But this kid is worse than that. He hasn't got any redeemable qualities. The character is the dick, and then the dialogue was just shit. And I love dialogue. I mean, my favorite TVs, films, and everything is anything by Aaron Sorkin. Like you said, the country are pretty thick, and I don't go for the lowest common denominator when it comes to films. Don't get me wrong, I love good old-fashioned 80s flicks, great off as well, but I like good dialogue, and this was anything but. It was so bad, and I was like, I can't even continue this.
Wow. I heard it was bad. I didn't know it was irredeemably bad.
I don't think it was made for me, in fairness, but it was.
It took me more than one try to get to the end.
It's funny you should mention like John Carter. Before Star Wars was bought by Disney, the reason why they were after it was for many years they've been trying to make their own version of Star Wars. For example, that's the reason why Tron was made in the first place way back when. And then when they tried to relaunch it with Legacy, that was kind of like, we've got a plan to make XYZ amount of films, and Legacy made its budget back, but it didn't make the money Disney wanted, if that makes sense. They thought it was going to be a huge, massive hit, like billions, but it made its money back. But Tron 3 was always a maybe, and then it got, even though they're saying it's coming out now thanks to Disney Plus and the Mandalorian technology and all of that. It was put on the wayside because they were like, we own Star Wars now. So everything that was in development, that was a maybe, because they were going to do Flash Gordon. They bought the rights to Flash Gordon, and Disney were going to reboot Flash Gordon.
You can't do that. The original
they were.
Gordon is the campus but most amazing film in existence.
And then
you can't replace Queen's soundtrack either.
Yeah, you can't.
But that's the thing. That is probably the most outstanding thing about it.
I mean, well, if it wasn't for Flash Gordon, we wouldn't have Thor Ragnarok, because I feel that Thor Ragnarok is the spiritual successor, because Taika Waititi adores Flash Gordon.
The influence.
Heavily influenced by that film, man, especially with the soundtrack.
They put Queen in it, so yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Immigrant Song, is that Queen?
No, that's
no, that's Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I was going to say, but it's a similar kind of vibe. You know what I mean? You knew exactly what they would go for. But point being is that they were going to do Flash Gordon, John Carter of Mars. They were going to do all of the Princess of Mars books, and then, when that flopped, that director, that was his big foray into live action films. And then guess what? It was like, oh, you owe the studio a film, go make Finding Dory. And he did. But point being is, they were after the next Star Wars, and then they bought Star Wars, and now they're making all the Star Wars, like all of them.
And you know how that went, which leads us into our next topic.
Yes, it does.
Solo 2.
Solo 2.
I'll leave it to you guys. I haven't seen Solo.
Okay. The whole point of Solo 2 was Alden Ehrenreich was in an interview recently and let drop that there are talks about Solo 2. Most notably because Solo has become one of the most watched things on Disney Plus, and the merchandise is selling.
I got the dice in my car.
Do you know earlier in the conversation when I put a pin in something and said I'll come back to it with the point to be made?
Yeah.
It's this. So you want to know about fans who decide if, in an almost sort of like, will I make the film? No, we're not going to let this film, in an almost Roman Emperor sort of way. It is Star Wars fans who, with the same sort of people, if they don't like it, if you haven't written the movie that they've made in their mind, they will write a petition to get it struck from the canon or anything else that's pathetic. And Solo 1 didn't do it did all right, it made its money back, but it didn't do anywhere near as well as they wanted at the box office, because people said, we're not going to see it because we're stopping because we didn't like the last actual Star Wars film. And they generally boycotted Solo out of pettiness and patheticness. So it just goes to show the fact that it's done well on Disney Plus is the only reason. And the fact that like or hate Star Wars, stuff like The Mandalorian has got people excited again because it's an awesome series.
That as well as I guess with The Mandalorian tech, that would cut the budget down by a considerable amount. The tech that they've created for that. Funnily enough, that tech was actually in Lucas's minds for his.
He mentioned it back in the day, wasn't he?
Back in 2005 after Revenge of the Sith.
2005 after Revenge of the Sith, he was going to do a television show, which he co-wrote with Star Trek's, what's his name, John Moore, I think, the guy that did Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and some of Next Generation. They had a writer's room and they wrote a whole series. They wrote 500 episodes.
I thought it was 95.
5 seasons worth, and we're talking 24 episodes a seson. They did 5. They wrote all these scripts.
24 episodes. Jeez.
Yeah, they were going full. Trust me, there's a vault of this stuff, and that's actually the main character of that show was supposed to be Forrest Whitaker's character, Saw Gerrera, and basically that all got put in a vault. But the whole basis of that TV show was they wanted to create what is the Mandalorian tech, that technology that they used on the Mandalorian. And when Jon Favreau teamed up with Dave Filoni to make the Mandalorian, he asked Dave Filoni, what was George working on this live action TV show? And then Dave Filoni was like this, and he was like, we should do that. We should do that.
He didn't develop it early enough to make the prequels not look there like they're made plastic and crap. And
oh yeah, true. But
really
you've got to go through the motions before you get the good stuff. Unfortunately, that's how technology evolves. But with the prequels, as bad as they were, I think the story was there. It's just the scripts needed a rewrite. That's and the acting maybe could have been done better, but I blame the editing, to be honest.
No, I agree. I think there's enough there that you can take from them, but they have some good actors and some terrible ones. But anyway, going back to Solo, I think it's really interesting that it is how well it's done as on Disney Plus that has got this through, because the original film was dogged by the fact that there was rumors going around that the main actor couldn't act and was having acting lessons and was going to be really, really bad, which is ironic because he was in the Coen Brothers film. Somebody who couldn't actually act. Yeah. And there was talks that he was bad, and so there was lots of bad vibes about it. Plus, everyone was stropping and going, well, we won't watch it because it's Star Wars and the last film wasn't good. And it because of The Mandalorian and how well it's doing on the streaming service, it might be viable. And I didn't care that they made the original Solo movie. I liked it. I thought it was good, and I thought the guy did a good approximation of Solo. But I've been intrigued to see where it goes, because the reveal at the end of Darth Maul, who was the most criminally underused villain in the the original
Star Wars universe.
It'd be good to see him back, and hopefully Ray Parks is playing him and what have you. So we'll if they do that, that would be exciting to see. They don't flog it like everything else we've discussed.
Yeah, before Solo had many things going against it, though. I mean, like, for me, before seeing Solo, and I saw Solo at the cinema, I wasn't feeling it. And that's, I could say these were the things against it. We were coming off The Force Awakens, where we actually got Harrison Ford back in the role. And it's a big, iconic role. Those are big shoes to fill, and a lot of people were like, oh man, we just seen Harrison Ford back, like, do we really want to see some unknown kid? The other thing was 6 months in the summer after a very controversial Star Wars film which divided the fan base, and on top of that 2 weeks after Infinity War, while Infinity War was still on its high in theaters. And thirdly, lack of marketing. The trailers that came out, they went unnoticed, kind of thing. They weren't high priority in the theaters when they were launched as well, because Disney weren't putting enough money anywhere in the marketing of that movie, because obviously they spent so much on the reshoots. And obviously the whole reshoot scenario with the firing of the directors and stuff, that put people off, because they're like, because all the stuff we've been hearing and stuff. And it's a real shame, because you know what? Ron Howard did a really good job with that movie, with saving it. That's even if it needed saving. You know what I mean? I can't tell what they had before, but I went in there with low expectations. I came out and I wanted a sequel the minute I saw it. I called up everyone. I was like, let's go see this film. And people were like, nah, it's okay. It's not Harrison Ford, isn't it?
There's so many things you could have done wrong with it. It could have been really bad. But the reason it succeeded is because it was a triple love story with his actual love of Daenerys being the least priority. It's a love story between Han and the Millennium Falcon, and it's a love story between Han and Chewie. And they got those beats right. They got that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Han and Chewie. And because of that, you kind of go, do you know what? Yes, we'll forget the fact that he's called Solo because of some bullshit reason.
Yeah, that was the only ropey
they got
thing.
The Chewie bit right, and they got the Millennium Falcon. They even made the Kessel Run seem less stupid as a sort of science fiction mistake and all this. And it just kind of worked because they were getting those beats. I don't know if it needs a sequel, but I'd watch it, and as it will probably go straight onto Disney Plus, I reckon.
It needs content.
It needs a sequel.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, I don't begrudge it because I paid only, like everyone, 50 quid up front for it, and there's the stuff that is on there. But yeah, it is lacking new content now. There's only so many old Disney movies you can watch. I mean, they got Hamilton recently, which got people excited again, but apart from that, they need some shit on there. And
I mean, it's funny you say that because I mean, for me, like I had zero intention of buying Disney Plus for anything new. Like everything, The Mandalorian, and when it does release in August and all the other times, all the MCU kind of TV shows, so WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, all of that. Yep, they're all cherries on top of the cake, but the cake is nostalgia. I was thinking, oh yeah, I'll probably get Disney Plus. It will have all the things I probably want on there. And then I went through that list of the stuff that they had, and I was like, hold on. The X-Men animated series. Well, hold on. The Mighty Ducks animated series. Hold on. The Silver Surfer. I was like, you got my childhood on here.
Wait a minute. There was a Mighty Ducks animated series?
The Mighty Ducks animated series, boy, where they were actual ducks from an alien planet who came to Earth.
Where's Emilio Estevez?
Right? What do you mean? That's one of the selling points of it as well as all the MCU, which I love, and Star Wars, which I love. It is that as well because my daughter's 18, but she absolutely adores 80s stuff. I brought her up right, so she loves a lot of 80s films. Things like she'd rather watch Goonies and Hunger Games or this and that stuff.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you very much.
It's a round of applause. It's a round of applause.
The other day, she's really, really hard though to get to settle down to watch a film with you, and I would occasionally go, "Come on, let's watch one we haven't done for ages," and then we'll go through stuff. So there's nothing to watch. And one day I said, "Fuck it, I'm picking something," and I've got Amazon, Netflix, and Disney Plus, and she's like, "Oh no." So eventually I went, "No, I'm going to just pick something. I'm going to come watch it." And so we went through Disney Plus because I'd gone through the other stuff, and I was like, "That's it. We're watching something from my childhood, which you haven't seen yet, which is a classic." And so I sat down and forced her to watch Cool Runnings. And it's like,
oh, nice.
You can do that.
Nice.
She needs to know how to kiss the egg and what that's all about. So, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, again, going back to the Solo story, I think I've not seen it yet, but it's on. I don't know. I feel so disillusioned by Star Wars at the moment.
It's worth a watch, man. I trust me. I was so pessimistic, but what I liked about it was it's what I wanted from these Star Wars movies. I got in Solo. It was like, okay, so they threw out all the extended universe stuff if you're a fan of novels and stuff, but Solo went against that. They were like, we're going to throw in all those Han Solo adventures that could happen in there, and they threw in little Easter eggs. Like there was a Sith holocron in there. There was there was that little skull MacGuffin from one of the Han Solo books on Vision's like little crib. Forgotten the name of the actor, Paul Bettany. There we go. He had like a few things, and then there's a thing.
What in the bloody hell are you talking about?
there's a thing that happens where Game of Thrones chick pulls some martial arts move, and then she's like, and they're like, "What was that?" And she goes, "Terrakazi," and I'm like, "I remember that Star Wars game," and It had loads of little references that no one would get but someone like me, and I was just like, wow, they really nailed it. And more importantly, I felt Eldon Ehrenreich did a damn good job. But more importantly, Childish Gambino as Lando Calrissian was so good.
Was genius cast.
He was so good.
That was really.
He had the voice, the mannerisms down to the T. They both did, but like Childish Gambino really stood out for me. And the Sarbach games, yeah, that was a real high moment for me as well. And I like the look of the aliens and stuff, and I liked how the Millennium Falcon looked when it was brand new. There was just so much about it where it was just like they went out of their way and made it with love and care. And what was really cool about it was when I looked at the making of, Lawrence Kasdan, who co-wrote Force Awakens, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. He's the co-writer. And more importantly, Indiana Jones and the first draft of Temple of Doom and Raiders. And Last Crusade.
He wrote a lot.
Yeah, he wrote a lot, but he really knows like Harrison Ford isms, you know what I mean?
Right.
He really knew the character of Han Solo. And when George Lucas sold the company, he was like, no, he has to do the Han Solo film because he's always wanted to do like a spin-off even back in the olden days. And he wrote it with his son, and his son grew up on all the stuff I'm into, and his son was the one that put all the little Easter eggs in there and stuff. And it was just such a labor of love I felt. And I was just like, you know what, this is one of the films that actually felt genuine. But that's just me. You know what I mean? I don't know how any other people felt about it, but I was shocked because if you listen to me on earlier podcasts, before I even seen the movie, it was the one I least wanted to watch. I was like, I don't think they should do that. And it's because I thought they would fuck it up.
I think that's the consensus here, though, isn't it? Low expectations and surprise. I think that, all of us have seen it. That's kind of what we got out of it. So.
But I'm glad, I'm glad I like it that much, because if I went in there with bigger expectations, I probably wouldn't have love it as much as I do, So it's a bit of a potato kind of situation, but yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go, Solo. Don't want to say that. Sorry, you caught me off guard. Okay, on to the next topic. Star Trek II Wrath of Khan producer Robert Salin is in talks with Paramount to you've got thing cut off there at the side there. I can't see it, Sach. I'm guessing this is to produce the new Star Trek film that hopes
That's
to
correct.
come out.
Yeah.
I think. I know Star Trek always seems to get into this position where you get to a certain number and then okay, what do we do now? So the J.J. Abrams reboot, or it's technically a reboot, but it's not. Anyway, it's good. I liked where they were going with it, and I didn't. The last one was. I don't know how I feel about the last one. I like the first one. Second one, I don't like what they did with Khan.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I think it's kind of a loss. I think this installment is kind of. I think they should just leave it now or reboot it, or I don't know. I really don't know at this point. There's been so many.
It's really weird because this guy hasn't really worked much in the past 25 years.
Yeah, I would finish on the Wrath of Khan as well. Boom.
Yeah. No, but I mean in general. I mean his last thing he did was second unit director with the Wachowskis
Matrix
film Assassins.
With
Sylvester Stallone and
Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas, because they wrote that script.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they wrote that script. They were right. Yeah, they were writers.
I have to watch that film now. Not seen it.
It's okay. It's very off its time.
Is it?
Banderas is a gem in it.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
That was actually one of his first Hollywood roles, wasn't it?
Yeah. Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that was Evita.
This might have come out. Did it come out before?
I think it must have come out around the same time.
1990.
Similar time, yeah. Assassin's really old.
No, you're probably right. I don't know.
I actually don't know, but that's the first time I saw Antonio Banderas. I went to see Evita with my sister.
I'm going to up you. I reckon he before that he was playing the boyfriend in Philadelphia. I think that's one of his first roles.
I think you might be right.
89,
oh wow, it's a Richard Donner film as well.
What, Evita?
Assassins.
I was
Yeah,
going to say it's Evita.
Philadelphia was 18. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm completely a little bit discombobulated there. What were you saying, Sach? You were saying something. Sorry.
I was saying something. What was I saying? Yeah, he hasn't really done anything much for the film industry in a long while. So I think it's a bit strange that he's come out to try and pitch something to Paramount for where to take it next. He hasn't really worked on any other iterations of Star Trek before. So I wonder what the affiliation he has with the studio and what he could actually bring to Star Trek, because it's well good to say that he produced the Wrath of Khan, but he didn't write it, he didn't direct it, he didn't. Do you know what I mean? He was just a money man. So I'm a bit intrigued, really, because like, what can he add? What's he gonna do? I don't really feel anything, because I feel that Star Trek. Well, I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, and I'll say something very controversial to Trekkies. My liking of Star Trek is really the original TV show. None of the films, because I just thought they were boring. And the thing that really got me probably a little bit more into the zeitgeist of Star Trek was the JJ reboot and its two other sequels, which I actually enjoyed them for what they were, because I didn't have an affinity to them. Even though I watched the original TV show, I wasn't coming at it from a Star Trek fan. I was coming from it for, this is funny when I'm drunk at 4 a.m. in the morning.
So the original Star Trek series is golden.
It had
golden.
It's
gold.
But what I saw from it was it had a sense
of
humor
anymore.
about it. It had a sense of humor about it, I felt. Kind of like the Batman television series and stuff of the 60s.
That's how I look at the original Star Trek, is like Batman. I mean,
it's gold.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's gold.
Way. It is, but in a bad way.
They know it's bad.
Anything's gold if you speak in William Shatner, like, so now we were going to speak like this the whole time.
It's just great. You just like to see him on screen. What's he going to do now?
For me, Star Trek properly. I mean, I acknowledge its place, but just as much as I'd rather watch the Dark Knight trilogy than the '60s Batman, even though I grew up on that Batman and loved it, and Adam West is a genius, it's still like they are very different things. But for me, it was the Next Generation, and then I skipped all the like Deep Space Nine and the Voyagers, just because I was a fan of the Next Generation. I grew up on that, but I wasn't as big a Trekker. And like Satch, I really enjoyed the movies to revitalize me in that. And then I've watched some other things recently, like Discovery, and I even watched Picard, and that was good, but also
Picard was hard to watch.
It is hard. It's very slow going, but there is some nice little moments. But it is, I liked it but didn't like it. But anyway, but the films I liked, I agree completely with you that I hated the Khan reveal because it just seemed so forced and shit. And I'm sure the director of the Wrath of Khan probably wants to speak to them and go, "What the fuck did you do?" The worst thing is John Harrison was so kick-ass. They didn't have to make him Khan just for the sake of having a callback to that. But I know I like the new films, and I want to see him do. But I'm also worried that what's he done since? Just because he's part of Star Wars history and Wrath of Khan is considered one of the best ones, it doesn't mean that's a good thing. That's like it goes back to Indiana Jones. We all loved Indiana Jones, but I don't want to see an OAP trying to swing a whip now. It's just embarrassing to just leave him, with his second unit directing of something in the 90s that was good and the Wrath of Khan, and go down the Marvel route of going, let's get a director like completely left field, like Taika Waititi, and let him do something, or Rian Johnson. As much as you might not hate that film, he's a good director. Stuff like Knives Out is brilliant. So it's like, take weird directors and give them a chance. Just like,
would you watch the Quentin Tarantino version, Greg?
Yes.
Well, we've had this discussion before, which I think Quentin Tarantino is like either genius or awful. I really am divided on him.
Agreed.
Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are classics, and I think I have no interest in watching The Hateful Eight. I think Kill Bill's shit. And I know people are like, oh, but I can take him or leave him. I know, I have strong opinions on it. But then that would be...
Yeah, shit, I forgot all about this.
Yeah, you don't want to prick me with that one because I will upset everyone here. But then that would be in keeping with the Star Trek films because, you know, it was a case of, what is it? The even ones are all good and the odd ones are all bad. It just seems to be... Yeah, so at least the new ones are fairly consistent in the sense they're all good in their own ways. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why you hate the original series of Star Trek films. That if you started off with the motion picture, because that is hard to get through. Wrath of Khan, though, it's how do you? It's a bit like Master and Commander.
It's a submarine film. I've seen it.
Yeah, but it's still good. It doesn't make it bad. It's just in space. It has a different dynamic. It's a good film, regardless of if you don't like it. I understand why you don't like it, but it's still a good film. It's like I don't like I don't know, name a film and throw stone and someone else will like it. It's subjective, as we all say, but I like those films because it's got a bit of this. There's a charm to them, especially the Voyage Home. I grew up watching that. It came on TV all the time, and I ended up loving it. That's how I grew to love those Star Trek films. And the newer ones, the JJ ones, he's treated it quite well, apart from Khan. But going back to your other question, if Tarantino just having his name on it just makes it, how is he going to do this? Even if it ends up being bad, I would have to go see it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it generates interest for the non-Star Trek fan a little bit.
Precisely.
You know? Which I think is what Trek needs a bit if they want to get those numbers. But it all depends. I mean, like, Paramount, I get Paramount's position, but at the same time, you need to pay those actors because they're all out of contracts and they deserve the pay rise because they've done their dues, basically.
I mean, different times now. It's different time now. If you're going to make any other film now,
yeah, that's right.
It's gonna. Well, this is what we're going through. If you want to earn this paycheck, the film has to make so amount, and which leads us back around to the whole coronavirus, the situation that's going on right now. And I don't know how you can fix the Star Trek franchise in this environment. To be honest. Because
do it animated. Do you make animated Star Trek?
It's been there, done that. I mean, they're literally doing that. Did you see the? Okay, you saw it. It's been slated. I don't understand why.
I think because it looks like a blend between the
Rick and Morty and
what people who don't watch Star Trek's view of the original Star Trek.
Right, yeah, got you.
Because, I mean, like, in regards to this whole thing with Star Trek, so, firstly, like, the guy being like, oh, I produced Wrath of Khan. I'm like, yeah, mate, you produced number 2 of what we are now in double figures of. Like, right? You know, it's like, that's literally like, you know, like a football manager being like, well, the second time this team won the FA Cup, I was like the second assistant coach, and they'd be like, bro, we've won 50 trophies since then. Like, chill out. It's, you know, I mean, but in regards to just the kind of whole outlook of Star Trek, for one, I didn't watch anything Star Trek related until the J.J. Abrams films were coming out, and then I watched J.J. Abrams' Star Trek film, loved it, and thought, wow, this is really interesting. Then watched every Star Trek film, starting with the motion picture and going all the way up to, I think is it Nemesis?
Yeah, Nemesis.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, Nemesis. Nemesis, the last one, yeah.
So I watched all of those films, and then watched the Star Trek Into Darkness, which was Khan. Then watched I'd say about maybe 10 episodes of the original show. And only now am I working my way through Next Generation. So I am by no means like a Star Trek aficionado or anything. But I'm just like, so the whole thing of like, oh, you know, what was his name? Jon Harrison or Jon Hamm?
Yeah.
Jon Harrison being Khan, like, it meant nothing to me. Like, his name could have been, you know, his name could have been freaking Derek Williams. Like, it wouldn't have been nothing to me.
The thing is, it was the worst kept spoiler at the time. Everyone knew it. And so it was, when he went, no, that's not my name, and everyone went, Khan, yeah, we fucking know. It wasn't, everyone was like,
the funniest thing
was asking him, are you Khan? And he's like, well, I can't. Well, no, my character's different. And blah. It's like, yeah, you're Khan.
The funniest thing is, right, it would have been the simplest fix in history. He could have just been like, you know, I'm Jon Harrison. And they were like, okay, and where are you from? I was like, well, he could have just been like, you know what, like, my commander was a dude named Khan. And then he went, whoa, okay, well, it's a different universe, it's a different timeline. So Khan died and this dude lived. All right, cool. Done. Bing, bang, boom. But I think, as we're saying, in regards to everything where you're either continuing or rebooting something, you need fresh eyes. And Star Trek really, like anything that's long-standing, anything with like a 40, 50-year history, you need fresh eyes on it, but those fresh eyes are also going to be met with like the pitchforks and the burning torches by those people who were around for the original. And they're like, you know, it's like, if you ruin my childhood, I'm going to burn your house down.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when, you know, I adore Quentin Tarantino. Like, you know, I think like anything he puts his mind to becomes gold, you know. And I mean, you said you hated Kill Bill. Like, Kill Bill possibly is my favorite Tarantino film. But it's like, you know, I think it's a thing of, it's almost like an actor being typecast.
Yeah.
Like, you look at, you know, you look at it like, okay, Tarantino only makes Tarantino films. And like, yeah, but Tarantino also does episodes of TV shows which are brilliant, and he'll do scenes for other people's films, and really and truly you'll just think it's a brilliant scene, and then you find out that he did it and you're like, oh, okay, so he can do other things, you know. It's the equivalent, I feel like it's the equivalent of like Robin Williams. Like, he is the funny man, and then, you know, people watched, like, what was it, Insomnia?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that was one of the films he did. It was like, you know,
1 hour photo.
Yeah, 1 hour photo.
I think Good Will Hunting really mixed it up for him.
Yeah.
But it's that thing there of like, you see someone who's like incredibly brilliant at their craft, and then you see them take on another avenue of it, and you're like, holy shit, you're actually really good.
I'd just rather watch Tarantino's episode of CSI than watch Kill Bill. Don't get me wrong, I like some of his films. I think Inglourious Basterds is good. I like Reservoir Dogs. I know True Romance he didn't direct, but I love that as a script.
Yeah.
I love a lot of his stuff. And then also I think like Death Proof or Death whatever that one was.
That's the one I didn't like. Death Proof.
I hate Play doesn't it? I've heard Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thing, but I haven't rushed out to see it, but I will watch that. But yeah, I just find him hit and miss. I think he's either brilliant or just overrated. I know Tarantino fans will find that sacrilegious, especially amongst this group here. But fuck it,
it's not a rule. It's not a rule to like every all of his films.
Yeah.
But, like, I was surprised that you felt it. But at the same time, I was like, I have to say, like, there are so many films or filmmakers who I'm just like, I avidly avoid. With, like, you know.
But Star Trek is a very good analogy of, you know, Tarantino is a very good analogy comparing to the Star Trek film.
Yeah.
Because for your average person, some people go original series was the best and everything else has been shit. Other people, I personally find original series in the same camp as Batman, camp being the word. And, you know,
that's why I like it.
And then I'll look at the films and I'll go, yeah, The Voyage Home was great. Wrath of Khan was brilliant. First Contact was a classic. That was one of the best ones ever. And then there's the other ones are, you know, they're fairly forgettable and stuff like that. So and it's divisive. I think it's better suited for TV now. I think Discovery has made it more gritty, but did an all right job. I personally think the best Star Trek series of late was The Orville, and that's not even Star Trek, but I think they got the tone right, and it was great fun. But
But that's just it. I mean, Greg's right there. I mean, like, I mean, I've not seen these TV shows and stuff, but I feel the general consensus are it's back on TV where it belongs, with people like Patrick Stewart and the blonde bird that was in one of them.
That girl, yeah, I remember her.
Yeah, that bird.
Jerry Ryan.
But I mean, but I mean,
love that. I love her, man. She's great.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, there's a bit of a Star Trek revival, and there's quite a few series out there and stuff, and it's back in the zeitgeist, you know. And I guess it's there for people that are like really big into it. I don't know how well these shows are. I could be totally wrong here, but that's how ignorant I am of, like, you know, Trek, to be honest. But
I mean,
I don't know. We don't really need another film, but they're going to make one regardless.
Yeah, it's like I mean, you could say the same about Star Wars as well. Do we need another episode? Do we need episode 9? Do we need episode 10? Do we need episode 11? I mean, they're going to do it. So
yeah. Well, like, whether you like it or not, it's coming. So it's just like,
do we like making money? Yes.
But that's it. And this goes again. This is one of the main themes we've been talking about: flogging a dead horse, but also new content versus kind of guaranteed money. You know, a sure thing versus original ideas. And if you've got Star Trek, you're going to use all that you can do with it. You're just going to use it all the time. Yeah. But they're not doing a bad job. I mean, of late, you know, I like the shows, I like the TV series. They're all good. None of them are like my favorite films or TV series of the year at any given point, but they're all good. They make me chuckle, apart from the odd reveal with Khan and stupidness like that. I still think they're well cast. You know, Simon Pegg makes everything better anyway, and you know, Chris Pine is reliable. I liked him. He was a standout in Smoking Aces.
Yeah, oh my God, Smoking Aces.
And from then I went, oh, he'll be one to watch. And the next thing I know, I literally at that time, he was like, he's cast as Kirk, and I'm like, oh wow, that's they're going with an unknown pretty much.
Hold on, no, that was Ryan Reynolds in Smoking Aces.
No, he's in it as well.
He's plays one of the mental.
Trust me, he's in it.
Yeah, he's skinhead,
and he's brilliant.
Oh, he's skinhead.
Yeah.
Skinhead,
he's like yeah. Oh right, man.
He's unrecognizable.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's how no one knew of him at the time. He looked like this weird character or something. But yeah, he's unrecognizable. Yeah,
hey, I just found out Sam Rockwell was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today, so you know.
He is?
Today.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell is selling cigarette. He's one of the kids that sells cigarettes in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then he shows
the redhead.
The redhead kid. That's the police officer's son that joins the Danny. He shows Danny round the Foot Clan's hideout. This is what we do, man, and blah blah blah. And like, here's some cigarettes. Go sell the cigarettes. And then Shredder shows up, and he's like, "Yeah, that's the Shredder." And then the Shredder's like, "I am your father."
Damn.
But,
yeah.
I think. Well, that's the thing. Is like, Greg, to touch on what you were saying about like Star Trek, it's just like they're making stuff and it's there. But when you were saying like it's you know the comparison between like guaranteed money and new and possibility of new IPs, new projects, it really does come down to that thing of like, we have to remember it's the entertainment business. It's business. And you know, there's a reason that the Big Mac is on McDonald's menu throughout the entire year, and you know, there's certain burgers that only pop up for like 3 weeks at a time. It's like, this makes us money. This might make us money.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't knock it because I mean the MCU. I'm a massive fan. I know everything about it. That would be my probably chosen thing and mastermind if ever went on. And I know this is not like the height of cinema and stuff like this. And I
think it is.
Well, this is what I was about to say. Is I think on the last time I was on the podcast, I got annoyed, but also a little upset that I love people like Coppola and Scorsese. So when they're saying it's not cinema, it upsets me because I think this is awesome. But then obviously Goodfellas and Godfather is my jam as well. You know, this is what I grew up with. So it's like, they don't. I like all different types of genres and stuff, and I love the MCU, and I know it just churns out money, and that's what they're doing. But yeah, every now and then they'll there's these great independent films, and I just hope they're not getting quashed. What I'm liking is the MCU and Disney taking chances on people like Taika Waititi, who'd only done The Wilder People really as the main film at the time that they brought him in, and then he went on to make Jojo Rabbit, which is absolutely brilliant.
He's done one other film.
Mate, you should really check all of his other stuff, mate.
What we do in the shadows?
I watched it the other day. I watched that recently.
The film or the show? The film or the TV show?
I watched the film. I watched the one with him in it.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's other couple of films. You should check out the film Boy and Eagle versus Shark.
Yes, I know that he'd done some other stuff, but Eagle versus Shark, that was very New Zealand, because that's against got Jermaine Templeton, isn't it? And then I saw stuff of that, but his biggest success was the Wilder People and got Glory.
Oh yeah, totally.
And then from that they went, okay, we'll give him a chance on Ragnarok. Well, that's amazing. I love the fact that they're taking chances on these left field directors. And as I said, Rian Johnson had done smaller films and then went and do a Star Wars. And I know a lot of people hated it, and that's a conversation for another day. But then he went on after that to make Knives Out, which is again brilliant. So Knives Out,
it is a brilliant film.
Things like Jojo Rabbit or something. So as long as there is still these films coming out as well, and it's not all franchises, I'm happy. I understand it as a business that they got to make money, and as I said, I like the Star Wars films and I like the MCU and I like all this, So I'm not going to knock that. If they want to do another Bond film, you're never going to get me upset because I love Bond. So I'm happy for all that as well, as long as creativity isn't completely stifled and stuff. So
I mean, like, I'm not going to dive headfirst into that because I've ranted many a times about what, like, Scorsese and Coppola and all of that said. But when you said the MCU wasn't the height of cinema, in my opinion, it is, and I love, there's a difference between motion pictures and movies, but my thing is this: a cinema, to me, is exactly the same as going to a theme park, right? I want an experience. I want to sit there and I want to have an experience. That's what I'm there for. I want you to take me away from my normal world, right? And you want to, I'm like, it's all great to have these masterpiece pictures that, like you have to just, every year come February, you're like, this needs to be nominated for an Oscar because it's, it taps into the exact core of human emotion and everything. But at the same time, look, I want to see a guy with a big ass shield say, I can do this all day.
I agree, 100. What I meant is that a lot of people didn't consider high cinema, and I was kind of harking back to Coppola and stuff like that. And people are going, blah, blah, blah. I agree. MCU, as I said, I don't shut up about it. I've done this podcast many times, and I'll always find a way bringing anything back to the MCU because I think it is the cinematic universe that is done correctly. There's a reason the two of the most popular films of all time now are overtaken over that are, Avengers films, because they were brilliant. And if anyone says Endgame didn't have emotion in and didn't have the ability to pull the heartstrings, it's bullshit. So I agree completely. It is very cinematic. And I'll go watch an MCU. I'm as excited about watching Infinity War or Endgame as I am any Christopher Nolan film, which I love, or anything like this. So no, I agree completely. And that's why I'll defend the franchise all day long, as long as it's not completely at the expense of other things. What's funnier is watching people trip over themselves and doing it wrong. It's like, we have to now have Sega franchise, and we have to have Universal Monster franchise. We've really got to get the DC franchise working, even though we're fucking it up massively. We need to get, and it's like everyone's so embarrassed to make franchise that there are these terrible things coming out, that mistakes where it's like this screams of people doing it because business people said this should make us money, and it's terrible. And the MCU are doing it really well, which is I could do a lecture series on the MCU. I love it so much, and what they're doing right compared to what they're doing wrong, including what they're doing right to what Disney's doing wrong with, even though it's the same company, with Star Wars, where they haven't got one person in charge of Kevin Feige to over.
Well, that's just it. They've got the right person in charge over at Marvel. They've got a guy that is a producer and has gone through the ranks. You've got to understand, he started with Richard Donner and Lauren Schuler Donner at the Donner's Company working on what's that Mel Gibson, Julia Roberts, Patrick Stewart film called?
Say again, Mel Gibson, Julia Roberts, who?
And Patrick Stewart, came out in the 90s, late 90s.
No idea.
No idea.
Conspiracy Theory?
Conspiracy Theory. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
That was like his first start. He stayed with the Donner's company and Lauren Schuler Donner, Richard Donner's wife. So he did Lethal Weapon 4. Then Donner's wife, Lauren Schuler Donner, she picked up the X-Men franchise. She picked up the rights to produce the X-Men. So he was like a PA on X-Men 1, X-Men 2. On X-Men 2, he met Avi Arad properly and worked directly under him on that picture, and then got the job at Marvel, working at Marvel as an assistant producer under Avi Arad when they had all their IPs split above, amongst all the different studios. And that's the best film school you could get as a producer, working as an assistant producer that gets to work and see how the inner workings of every single major studio runs, if you know what I mean, because all their IPs were scattered all over Hollywood. So he saw how the sausage was made in every single place. And the one thing that wasn't doing anything was Iron Man, because Tom Cruise was adamant he would only do Iron Man when no one's doing superhero movies. And when that became not a thing, the rights reverted back to Marvel, and Kevin Feige took a chance as like, let me do Iron Man. You know what I mean? And he took it on board. He picked Jon Favreau, and magic happened. And you know what? Like, he became the man. And not only did he become the man, he had a vision. He knew from Iron Man 1, we're going to take it to Avengers. And from Avengers, they knew they'd introduced the Infinity Stones, and they knew they had to bring it to Thanos, And that's clever laying out plans. And the thing is, if a movie doesn't go well, he knows exactly what they're going to do to counter that. Whereas a lot of people will throw their shit at the wall and try something ridiculous. He's already written a plan B. I mean, there was a whole thing on Civil War about what they were going to do if they didn't get Spider-Man, and if they weren't going to do it with Black Panther, because there was a whole issue about them not making a Black Panther film. And more importantly, there was also the issue of Robert Downey Jr. not coming back. And the head of Marvel Entertainment, Ike Perlmutter, he was like, I don't care about Robert Downey Jr. for Civil War. If it's going to be cheaper, do it without Robert Downey Jr., do it with a different Marvel character. And he was like, that's not the story. Okay. And he actually turned around to Disney and said, look, this is what I want to do. Otherwise I'm quitting. He put his job on the line over Civil War. And Bob Iger woke up. He's like, this guy gives me like $1 billion every fucking summer. He ain't going nowhere. What is it that you need to do? What is it you need from me? And he's like, head of Marvel, tell him to stick with the comics, which he's fucking up anyway. Just keep him away from the fucking movies. And then what happened? We got Alan Silvestri's score in all of the fucking Marvel films, so the music was more consistent because they didn't want to spend money on like the same music. They got Robert Downey Jr. back for XYZ amount of films, and we got the Infinity Saga. And
they've got whoever. The great thing is that I keep going back to that they're also bringing in, because Jon Favreau was a brilliant choice for the
totally
great director and stuff like. I mean, The Mandalorian again is awesome, but he's so good. But he'd made films like Chef beforehand, which is excellent, but wasn't known for being in charge of big budget things.
Actually, Chef came after Iron Man 2.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, he wasn't a really known big. It was his first big franchise.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I mean,
take a chance on these people, but there's always that consistency, and I like that because they've got Kim Feige and people at the top who are going, this is the overarching thing. Also, you need to hit these beats because that's going to be important for the Infinity War thing on this. It all pulls together, whereas Star Wars and the DCEU and stuff like that are in disarray because they're all trying to just make the best individual film rather than look at the bigger picture. So I think that it's the only really successful franchise at the moment, apart from ongoing ones like Bond that have been around for a long time, which you can't go wrong with to an extent. But even then, that's hit and miss occasionally. I mean, the last one was pretty awful, but I mean, I think MCU were doing it all right for all the right reasons and stuff. So,
You've actually forgotten the last Bond, actually.
The last one. The reason it went wrong was exactly the same reason for the whole. My name is Benedict Smelly Bat saying I am Khan, and it's like, for fuck's sake, they had it. It's like.
Oh yeah, it was Blofeld, wasn't it?
I am Stavros Blofeld. It's like, you didn't have to do that. The setup was interesting and stuff like that. And it's like, they're going to bring back that for the sake of it. And now they're going to do some shit that they were stepbrothers. That in the world of spies, your biggest nemesis is a stepbrother. It's like, how the fuck did Bond ever get MI6 security clearance? It's like, yeah, we do know he's in charge of the whole criminal organization we're trying to protect. So yeah, it was just too like, oh really? You didn't have to do that. Just give us, you don't have to tie everything back to something nostalgic. You just don't. So yeah. But no, I like franchises at work, but I like them. I like the fact that there's lots of good up and coming directors that are being used for some of the better franchises. But then also, people like Russo brothers are just brilliant at what they do as well, and their films in the MCU are considered some of the better ones, and they're just awesome as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one very, very quick point, right? Even though the modern films are pretty terrible, I have to say, I gotta give like at least like one little kind of like bly to the Universal monsters, because to my knowledge, that was the very first interconnected universe.
Yeah.
So I give them. I got every one of those films, barring like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Oh no, the original ones are great. They're trying to redo it at the moment. That's the problem.
And,
they're trying to redo it. So
is
Dracula Untold was the first. Well, Dracula Untold, The Mummy, the Benicio del Toro, Wolfman. These are all meant to come together to be part of this thing, but they're none of them have done well, and so.
Well, that's the thing, is I think that stems from, to me, that stems directly from the MCU, because it's like, it's the whole theory of like, you can't build a better wheel, right? It's round, it's got a hole in the middle, it's a wheel. You know, everybody's trying to make the same wheel, when really and truly everybody should basically attempt to do bread. Because you know what it is, you do it like that. Like, you think about it, there's white bread, there's brown bread, there's whole, there's half and half, there's bagels, there's croissants, there's buns, I'm like, treat it like that, where you can have, just do your own thing.
See, now I'm just hungry.
But right now I'm on keto diet, so I can't eat bread, so all I'm fantasizing about is bread.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, though, is the high-ups at companies are going, what films can we make that are going to be multi-trillion-dollar franchises? What can we do? Because everyone wants to get the success of Disney. Everyone wants that now. And so people think about franchises. And if you're Universal and you've got this back catalogue of these amazing monster films back in the day where Christopher Lee was Dracula and Bela Lugosi, and which were all classics, it's like... That is, I don't disagree that they're trying to reboot that, because they could have done it well. They just didn't. It's just, they've just made some really bad films, and they're exactly. And, they haven't tried Frankenstein yet, because obviously Boris Karloff did such a good job. Nice. Yeah.
I got to walk back here as well.
Bela Lugosi and Christopher, these are classic actors, and then they did Dracula Untold, which was awful, which it shouldn't have been. And then they did The Mummy, which was supposedly was meant to be better, but apparently Tom Cruise just interfered with it. Which is a shame.
He really did.
He interfered with one of the only other franchises that does work, which is the Mission Impossible franchises. And that's a solid franchise.
It's just got better and better.
It gets better and better. And the last couple have been just going from strength to strength. Yeah. There was a couple of ones in the middle. I mean, the second Mission Impossible.
Just the second one. Just the second one.
The second one. That's the one where Dougray Scott not only made the worst film, but then because of reshoots of that, lost the chance to have Hugh Jackman's career. And it's like, you'd fucking hate Mission Impossible after that. You'd be like, fuck it, I could have been Hugh Jackman. I was Wolverine, but I had to go back and reshoot this film, which would be considered the worst in an ongoing franchise. But yeah, so Mission Impossible franchises is another rare franchise that really works. And I love the films, and they are getting better and better. They are really good. So
Yeah, again, bringing it back to what were we talking about in the first place?
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Look at you with the intermediate. It's got to go back to 17 hours ago when we really made the point.
Fuck, it was Star Trek.
Again, the Star Trek, especially the first JJ reboot. That's quite a spectacle. It's different enough from what happened on the TV shows for it to warrant that film, and the third one felt like it could have been on TV. That last one that came out,
like an extra long episode.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to do. They were kind of going for that. Let's make it look like it's an episode Star Trek. But yeah, that would have been super for TV.
Yeah, and so I don't.
Wasn't that the one with Idris?
Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't even know it was Idris.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was Idris.
It doesn't
his name came up.
It doesn't matter. That's not the point of the character. Yeah. But I think. Yeah, I think Star Trek's quite an uncharted territory in terms of the going on beyond 3 films. So if this guy can fix it, if he says he can fix it, I mean, it's better than they got. Justin Lin was the last person who directed Star Trek. So Jessen should direct the next one. if anyone knows who Jessen is, but I think it's I think it's really difficult to come up with a credible good Star Trek story and then make it into a film and then follow up from that, because Paramount want a franchise. So I don't know. I mean, Tarantino will do his one and I'm done. Good luck, guys, with the next one. And good or bad.
Maybe that's what they need.
Maybe.
Because you know what? I'm like, it's like when you throw the rule book out, that's when sometimes you have to get really creative. And it's like that's the thing, is because you think about it, you get somebody like Tarantino, like whether he does a good job, a bad job, whatever, right? You just his name simply on it, just saying a film and it says directed by Quentin Tarantino, that automatically means 2 things. 1, you're going to get butts in seats to watch the film. And 2, whatever you plan to do next, the person's going to need to be real creative, because if the film is a masterpiece, then they're going to have to be creative to do something else after that. And if the film is monkey shit, then you're going to have to salvage it.
Isn't Tarantino making a finite amount of films? So
yeah. He's on his 10th.
His films, so his universe of films.
Okay.
There is only going to be a set amount.
10.
Okay. Because I was about to say, if he uses up one of his lives as such on,
that'd
be like, I've only got 4 days left to live.
Yeah,
so you can go food shopping with me. It'll take a few hours.
There are a few, like you said, lives. For example, the Star Trek one would not be written by him. They will have their own writers.
Might be good then.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So that was just it. What happened was there was a podcast he was on. This is where it all came from. There was a podcast he was on, and basically they asked him, "Oh, what did you think of the new Star Wars film?" He's like, "Fuck Star Wars," because he's not really a big Star Wars fan. And he was just like, "No, Star Trek was my thing. Captain Kirk was the guy, blah, blah, blah." And they asked him what he thought about the new ones. He says they're all right for what they are. He likes the actors. And then they were like, "What would you do if you were to direct one?" And then he was like, "Oh, I've not really thought about that, but if I was to," and he said, "Look at the original series," because he's a big fan of the original series. He goes, "You can take any one of those episodes and extend them into an actual 2.5-hour plot. They were just constrained by their time and their budget. You know what I mean?" And he said, let's say it's an alternative universe. It gives the filmmaker, it's an example of remaking something, but doing something a little different with it and taking the episode into places that you couldn't do for TV. And he named a couple of his favorite episodes, etc. And then J.J. Abrams was on the phone to him the very next day. And that's what caused the big Quentin Tarantino rumor. And then when asked about it again, he said, look, if he was to do it, he wouldn't write it because he's adamant that the written directing of a Quentin Tarantino film, that one film will be his last. The only other exception would be if he did a sequel to Kill Bill, because that he sees that as like one film kind of saga kind of thing.
He's always said he's going to do part 3.
Originally, it was supposed to be one film, and then Harvey Weinstein cut him up into 2, and basically said he wanted to cut it to 2, and that's why we got volumes 1 and 2. So he said, basically that's it. Other than that, that's it. There was rumor about he might do the sequel to Django Unchained. What that was a case of there was Dark Horse Comics that came out around the time of Django. 6 months after Django came out, and it was Django versus Zorro, and he just
Dynamite. It was Dynamite.
Okay. Yeah, and apparently it was really good. Quentin Tarantino liked the comic, and he said, look, he'd produce it, he wouldn't direct it, and he didn't write it. The comic book writer did. So he said, okay, cool, nice. So he's not directing it per se. So that's really it. It's like his 10th film will be his 10th film. Star Trek's kind of like the bonus round. Personally, I hope the MCU gets him for Luke Cage, but that won't ever happen.
If he ever makes a Star Trek film, though, I'd want it to be like one of these trilogy adventures where you've got all these different bits. I'd want it to be, if he's taking something from the original series, I'd like to see a Quentin Tarantino version of the Tribbles. Those cute.
Oh yeah.
With fuck tons of blood and gore. That would be amazing. Yeah. I want Samuel L. Jackson playing Picard. Sort of like. What speed 9? Maybe motherfucking so. That's the shit I want to see. I'd watch it just because it would be either amazing or awful, but either way it'd be entertaining.
You would have to watch it just on right that he's.
Oh God, yeah.
You just have to watch it. There's no way you can.
I'd just watch it for Samuel, just to say motherfucker in it.
It'll be like John Carpenter's making the Care Bear movie. It'd be like, I'd watch that shit now. I want to know what the fuck is going to happen here. So yeah, no, I'd watch that. So.
Well, on that bombshell, we're coming to the 3-hour mark here, so I'm gonna
what?
cut.
Has it been 3 hours?
2 hours 32 minutes.
Oh bloody hell!
I
thank you to everyone who has made it to the end who doesn't know any of us. You're just listening because you enjoy it. Thank you to all of you.
I'm gonna edit that out. I'm joking.
Time sake. All
the people who know us, you better be listening to this to the end.
That's a threat. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Is there anything that you guys want to plug? No,
not today.
Not even. I can't think of anything myself, to be honest. But
not even that.
Not even myself. I can't even plug myself. Sach, what about you? You the company you work for?
This podcast was sponsored by Diet Coke and Dime.
And
the ice cream.
Pepsi Max.
Yeah, I think we have to balance out that. Yes.
I've got nothing.
More importantly, if you like retro video games, go and check out Antstream. It's a retro gaming streaming service where you can play lots of old school games from your past online. Check us out.
Okay.
I feel I have to plug some shit now.
You can.
Okay, check out some gaming journalism on pczone.co.uk, or if you have Amazon, if you're in the UK, US, Germany, or Japan, check out the original TV series Board Gamers, spelled B-O-R-E-D rather than anything else. And yeah.
Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for that, guys.
Why didn't you pimp out your old show in the first place, man?
Yeah.
Because I've done this a few times and pimped out lots of time. Plus the show's like 6 years old now, so
yeah.
But it's still on Amazon, so yeah. Check out my show on Amazon.
Board Gamers.
Yeah, it is on TV.
B-O-R-E-D, yeah.
You're in there.
It's my show, yes.
Your show, dude. That's on my freaking Amazon watch list.
Yeah, that's me. That's my show. An award-winning TV show.
Wow, that's I don't even know what you'd call that. That's like a mind explosion that I can see happening.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, board game. Wait a minute, I know that. That's on my Amazon watch list.
Yeah, watch it.
I thought you was plugging it because it was just cool, nothing because you reached your show.
That's my teacher. I'm the co-producer and co-presenter.
Boom.
You will recognise me because I look like this, but I won't have a beard. But short of that, it's me.
Damn, okay. Celebrity, man, celebrity. Yeah. We only get celebrities on here. Yeah.
And I'm speaking to you guys despite not having me on for the 100th episode as I asked for. But you know, despite that, I begrudgingly come on for this one.
I think it was your Disney of Kill Bill that got you kicked off that.
I think it was. Doesn't like Tarantino. I'm not sure we want him on the century.
Oh, all right. Well, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Sach. This has been the Zedos Game Podcast, and we're out. Go on. Do it. Come on.
I am the man that killed Jaime Lannister.